Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our regular meeting this Tuesday, June 30, 2026. Anybody on the commission want to make any changes to our agenda this evening? If not, anybody in the public that wants to pull anything from consent? If not, I consider a motion to approve our agenda this evening.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Putnam?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Aaron's?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes. Next is to get a motion on our consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Putnam?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Aaron's?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes, motion carries. Next item, we'll move on to regular business. We have commission discussion regarding Lincoln County Justice Center. Commissioner Putnam?
I'm gonna table that for another time. We got things to do.
Okay, so is that a motion that you'd like to make? Or do you
No,
just want
I
to?
just want to withdraw it then, if that might be the deal.
Okay, so we've approved our agenda. Commissioner Putnam, you'd like to remove it. Is there a second to Commissioner Putnam's
Second.
request? Motion second. Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Putnam?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Aaron's?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes, motion carries. Next, we have discussion with board action to follow regarding execution of a contract with Axon Inc. Good evening, Sheriff.
Just here to get approval to sign a contract with Axon for a 5-year contract for our tasers. The current contract we have is, we have several contracts that are combined into, we have 8 separate contracts for 36 tasers. 12 of them are expired, so they're out of warranty, and all the cartridges and stuff are separately purchased, so the contract's actually not costing us anymore. It's just the parts and stuff are separate from the contract that we're paying. So we're paying $21,000 per year for the 36 tasers. We want to completely get rid of those contracts, put it all under one, which would include cartridges, training cartridges, and that would include any cartridges that are deployed in the line of duty. And this would be a 5-year contract, replace all of our contracts, replace all of our tasers for 5 years. I really feel like I'm not explaining this very well, but it comes out from $21,000 to $37,000 a year, but it increases our tasers, which we're 4 short, 12 are expiring, so we're paying the same amount, but we're putting it all under contract versus
Are we getting new tasers?
all new tasers.
Okay. For $37,000,
Right,
okay.
$37,000 annually for 5 years, 63 months.
Anybody else have questions for the sheriff?
If you have questions, I question you.
Sheriff, I got a question.
Good.
Do you want to test one on me?
I'm going to plead the fifth.
Demonstrate.
All right, any other questions? If not, any public input on the request? All right, can I get a motion, please?
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Putnam?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Aaron's?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
We have auditor presentation, post-election results.
Sherry Lund, Lincoln County Auditor. Lincoln County's post-election audit was held on June 16th at 10 a.m. We had 2 boards of 5 members each. The audit took 4 hours to complete. Overall, the post-election audit went very well. The primary election had a total of 14,117 ballots cast. The audited ballots totaled 1,343, which would be around 9.51% of the total ballots. We audited Sioux Falls 114, United States Representative, and Sioux Falls Charter Amendment B. We also did Sioux Falls 210, which was United States Representative at large, a council member for Sioux Falls. Both United States representatives came out with no errors. Sioux Falls 114, Charter Amendment B, was off by 1 vote. On election night, we had 1 ballot that was counted as an overvote. The board was unable to locate the overvoted ballot, which resulted in an additional no vote. Sioux Falls 210 at large, a council member for City of Sioux Falls, was off. On election night, we stated we had 1 unstamped ballot that was not counted. The audit board was unable to locate the unstamped ballot, so 1 additional ballot was tallied during the audit. And those are the results that are displayed on the screen. Any questions?
What
Commissioners?
percentage of voting did we have in Lincoln County?
I think it was 30%.
Okay.
Other questions from commissioners? You don't need any action on this, Sherry? Nope. All right. Any public input on the auditor's presentation? All right, if not, then we will move on to our interview of candidates for Commission District 2. So just before we get started on this, and I would like to get some input from commissioners so that we can be respectful of everybody's time that's here tonight. I was thinking in discussions with others to do candidate input. Candidates can come up and speak for 5 minutes and then have a 10-minute commission session to ask questions so that it's fair to everybody. And if we want more time, then we can discuss that if we need more time or have more questions that we don't feel that got answered. But really appreciate anybody's input on this so we can get the process itself approved.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Let's do it.
anybody else?
Now, just so I understand, we're going to do the interviews tonight and possibly make the final decision on next week? Is that
I'm open to however
Well,
the commission.
when we had the
wants.
motion, we said that we would do the interviews on the 30th, and we would make the final decision, I thought, on the 7th.
And do the voting on the 7th.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with that process?
I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Okay.
And that might require callbacks or something, we never know.
We don't need a motion to approve the process, do we? Okay. All right, so it sounds like everybody agrees to that process. So there'll be a 5-minute timer for the candidate, and then there'll be a 10-minute timer for our discussions. If a candidate gets asked a question right at the end of that 10-minute period, then I think the candidate still gets to answer their question, so they don't get cut off in answering that question. Does that sound good? Okay. All right, so with that, we will get started, and we are just taking these candidates in order in which we received the letters of interest. Does anybody have an objection to handling it in that fashion? No. All right, then our first candidate, the first letter that we received was from Brandon Maddox. So Brandon, if you want to come up and tell us what you want us to know.
Perfect. So Chairman Landine and Commissioners, appreciate this opportunity. Excited to be here. So who am I? Brandon Maddox. Lived in the county a little over 20 years. Started my business here, Silencer Central, from my house, believe it or not, in Lincoln County. Raised our daughters here. Have called us home for over 20 years. So, more about me, thinking about, I guess the question that's probably going to come up is, why now? And I think that's a good question. At Silencer Central, over the last 24 months, we've transitioned our leadership team. I'm the CEO. We've transitioned me to more of a non-involvement in daily activities. So my role is a visionary in an organization. We've done that transition over the last 24 months. And the goal was, if a public opportunity position opened, that's what I had interest in. That's why you saw that I was the first to submit interest in this. The other thing is, our daughters are both in college. Our youngest is headed off to college in a couple weeks, so timing is perfect. So why me? One of the challenges in building Silencer Central has really been rapid growth and also dealing with really limited resources, limited budget. And if you look at how we've performed at Silencer Central, we've won Inc. 5000 every year over the last 6 years. One of the fastest growing companies in the United States, and definitely in the state of South Dakota. So I feel like that a lot of the challenges that Lincoln County is currently facing and are going to face are very similar to the challenges that I have faced in business, the challenges I've navigated over the last 22 years. So does my experience in business necessarily make me a better candidate than those candidates that have government experience? The answer is no. It makes me a distinctly differently qualified candidate. And what I mean by that is my goal would be to bring a completely different perspective. By trade, I'm a pharmacist, bring that perspective, have a master's in business, that perspective, have a CEO and entrepreneur perspective as well. So that's what my goal would be, to complement the current commissioners and bring what I feel like would be a different perspective. Far as, my commitment to Lincoln County, it would be to give the time necessary to be successful as I've been with my business. It would be to be extremely well prepared, to ask a lot of questions and learn, and also to make decisions in the best interest of the county. I've got extra time, but I know that some of you all may not know me, so I want to give you all plenty of time to solicit questions of me personally.
All right, so then we'll now start the timer at 10 minutes. All right, thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for being here. And just so everybody knows, I'm going to ask these same questions of every candidate that comes up.
Perfect.
I'd like to get your thoughts on three things:
Yes, sir.
dairies, hyperscale data centers, and the prison.
So, any particular order? Boy, that's a tough one. So, what specifically? How they impact Lincoln County, or my perspective on them, or?
Yeah, as they relate potential placement in Lincoln County, and/or with regard to the prison, the process that the governor's administration went through as it relates to, the interplay between local control and the need for a large state project, and how that impacted the citizens of the commission district you're hoping to represent.
Yeah, no, good question. So, looking at the prison situation, obviously being a resident of Lincoln County, I was pleased to see that it's not coming to Lincoln County. It's actually going up closer to my business, which I'm fine with. Far as the process that the county went through and the state went through, personally as an outsider, I felt like it was being pushed down Lincoln County's throat by the previous Governor Noem, and when they met resistance, they were looking for a way to get it through. So I guess I would say not a ton of comments on the process, but obviously very pleased with the outcome. I applaud Lincoln County coming together and putting together a force so that it didn't come to Lincoln County, because I don't think it was the best place for the county or for the state. As far as dairies, I don't know that I have a ton of insight on dairies. I can tell you when I was a kid, I raised dairy cattle. I'm not an expert on dairy cows. I guess the only story I have is my mother ran a church event, yard sale, when I was growing up. And at the end of the church yard sale, the only thing I hadn't sold was the cow, and I bought it. And that became sort of my hobby growing up, was raising dairy cows. And I think my parents liked that because it gave me a lot of responsibility as a kid. It kind of kept me out of trouble. So far as, I've got friends that run dairies. If you're worried about, the impact at Lincoln County, I think it's probably important to get feedback from people that live near them. But other than that, I wouldn't say I have a whole lot of, opinions on dairies per se. And what was the third item?
AI hyperscale data centers.
AI hyper, again, not a complete area of expertise, the data centers. I think that if something was trying to come to Lincoln County, I think we would have to assess it on a situational basis. I think there's probably better places in the state than Lincoln County for that. I do see needs for data centers, but not necessarily in Lincoln County. I feel like as a country that we need to embrace it, but do they need to be in Lincoln County? Not necessarily.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Commissioner Schmidt, any questions?
Well, being a county commissioner, you're going to have to make some tough decisions. So I have one.
Sure.
How comfortable would you be if you had to vote on an issue that met all of the rules and regulations and was in complete compliance with your comp plan, but yet you were personally opposed to that? How would you go about that to balance your own personal feelings versus what is in front of you, which has been met all the necessary obligations?
Okay, let me make sure I understand the question. So basically, from a lawful standpoint,
Yeah.
what's being presented is 100% lawful. And the question is, if I'm personally against it, how do I handle that?
Would you let your personal feelings influence your vote, to vote no?
Yeah, good question. So there would have to be a reason why I was thinking no. Is there potentially that it could be unethical, or it could be seen as a conflict of interest? So sometimes things could be legal, but they wouldn't necessarily be the right answer or the best circumstance or scenario for Lincoln County or District 2. So I would garner feedback from the rest of the commissioners and get their feedback. Just be honest. Hey, I'm not feeling good about this. I see it meets all the legal requirements. The easy thing to do would be for us to rubber stamp this, but I'm not feeling easy about this, and here's the reasons why. Like I said, it could be an ethical violation, could be a conflict of interest. There could be things that aren't legally calling out, but it could be other reasons why it just doesn't make sense. And I think getting feedback from the other commissioners as to what their perspective would be, and if they felt the same, and it looked like it's going to be a majority, then I would say there's no harm in voting against it.
Even though it could have been, well, I'll leave that alone. I got one final question.
Yes, sir.
County employees are probably the most important thing that we have here,
Yes, sir.
because they run the county.
Got it.
They are the ones that meet every taxpayer every day. So what's your philosophy on maintaining and quality staff?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I would say there's no way Silencer Central would have grown at the rate it did if we didn't have a high-quality staff. And I, probably failed to mention, I've got an excellent leadership team. Is one reason why I am able to push back away from the company and focus more on public service. I think the key is staff, it's got to be very clear what the expectation is for them and what their goal is to accomplish. People are not going to have the self-actualization and enjoy their job unless it's very clear what they're asked to complete. I think that the other thing that's critically important is that they're getting feedback on how they're projecting against those objectives. I see so many times in corporate scenarios where managers are just scared to meet with their employees because they don't have the guts to give them the feedback they need. I think that although at least I feel that you need to make sure you have the right people on the bus. We're a part of EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, and one of the key principles we focus on is having the right person in the right seat on the bus. And I think it's easy from a government perspective to sit there and say, we're going to have a hard time replacing this person for whatever reason, small rural area, don't have enough funds, don't have great benefits. You can't use that as an excuse. The key to a highly successful organization is making sure it's very clear what their job is, they're held accountable to it, giving feedback on it, and then also that they're rewarded accordingly, and making sure you have the right people on the bus in the right position is critically important.
Commissioner Putnam?
How about livestock and hog confinements and stuff? Where do you set on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I guess similar to I guess I don't have a huge opinion on it. I mean, I would have to get more input from people if people are concerned because they're living near that and they feel like there's sound or smell or, other issues. I think you have to get feedback from the people who live around there and figure out what the impact is and see if there's ways to mitigate it. And if not, sit down and try to figure it out.
Thank you. What do you see as, I guess, Lincoln County's biggest challenge right now?
Again, I think it's very analogous to Silencer Central. Rapid growth, and how do you fund it? I mean, it's super tough. I mean, I've never taken money from anyone other than borrowed from a bank, and it's super tough to grow a business like you are here very quickly with limited resources. So it takes a lot of forethought, it takes a lot of discussion, it takes a lot of deep digging to try to figure out where's the best place to put the money so the funds are spent the best. And in my mind, that's one of the most important positions of a commissioner is the stewardship of the funds that are coming from the taxpayers, some from the state, some from the county, but making sure you're spending those where you're going to get the best return for the actual county. And it's tough because there's short-term objectives and there's long-term objectives, and you got to have a lens to look at both. So I think really, the most important thing is the stewardship of the money.
Brandon,
Yes, sir.
District 2 is a huge district.
Got it.
It represents probably 60, 70% of the county. And in that, you have both urban areas and you have very rural areas.
Yes, sir.
And how would you balance that as a commissioner in going forward and making the critical decisions that would not only affect the urban area, which may not affect the rural area, but the rural area decisions may not affect the urban area? How do you go about balancing all that?
I think the key is to get out there and be available where people can give you feedback. I mean, what I'm hearing from your question too is how do you relate to people in rural areas? If I, have spent time in Sioux Falls, if you look at Silencer Central, I started it as a one-man show. And I started it by working at gun shows in South Dakota. And when I went to my first gun shows, no one knew who Brandon Maddox was. I only knew one person in the state of South Dakota, and that was my wife. She was from Vermillion. So when I moved here, I didn't know anyone. And I had to go to the gun shows and convince these people that, a silencer is fun, it's legal, you're going to have to wait a year to get it, you got to pay me up front, I need your fingerprints, you got to go visit your sheriff and get his signature and buy off. And the feds are going to vet all this stuff, and you got to trust me with your money and all this information. So I feel like that if I had not been successful at identifying the issues of these rural people, Silencer Central would have never been the success it is today. And from a business perspective, if people could not have trusted me for having their important critical information and also having their money for sometimes a year, the wait to get the silencer, then I would have never been as successful as I was. But going back to the key distinction in your question, I think the importance is being available so that you're getting feedback from both sides. Because it is a balancing act between are the people who are yelling the loudest really what make up the majority of the information out there, and the only way you're going to assess that is to be available and actually interact with people both in the rural area and in the urban area. So it's not one or the other, it's getting to know both and then putting the lens on to see which issues vet out for each one.
Thank you. All
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
All right. Next applicant is Madeline Vogelai.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Hi.
How are you today?
Doing well.
That's great.
I'm not the one getting grilled, you are, so.
That's fair. I'm here for it. I
I'm
signed
fighting
up for
better
it
than
all
you
on
are.
my own. We're good.
You can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Perfect. We'll start with the introduction. My name is Madeline Vogelai. My husband and I are lifelong residents of District 2 here in Lincoln County. I serve as a small business owner in the county. I serve as a mother and I serve as an educator. Professionally, my husband and I own a small concrete business in Lincoln County that serves Lincoln County a lot in the northern area of Lincoln County and then in District 2 as well. I serve as a professor of education at the University of Sioux Falls. There I teach future educators how to teach. So every day we're talking about collaboration, learning from others, and the importance of working together and communication. In addition to that role, I also serve as the director of the Education Specialist Programs at the University of Sioux Falls. So after my first year, teaching at the undergraduate level was one thing, but I was ready to take on more. And so in my role as director of this program is I oversee all graduate programs for people with their master's degree that are going on to become either a superintendent or a principal. In that role, I balance the entire budget for those programs, right? So I create them and I see them, and then I choose the adjunct professors that we select on behalf of the university to teach those courses. So I'm working alongside many, many superintendents and principals right here in Lincoln County, which gives me a pulse on what is going on in public education all across the county. I'm ready for questions. We have so many things that we'll come
Alright.
into that are gonna come out during this.
All right.
Good evening, Maddie.
ahead.
Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Same question as I put to Brandon. Insofar as it relates to growth and development here in Lincoln County and the placement therein, I'd like to hear your thoughts on dairies, hyperscale data centers, and of course, the process that the state went through to, when it wanted to put the prison here.
Yeah, those are all three really great points. First, we'll start with the dairy, because I would say dairies, especially in the southern part of Lincoln County, are kind of going to be the next hot button issue, or things that people are really focused on. And I do think we need to be careful about that. And what I mean by be careful about that is we need to follow the comprehensive plan and what that looks like. So as members of the commission, we need to get the approval of our constituents, follow the comprehensive plan, and ensure that we're making the right decision moving forward in regards to that. We can talk a little bit about data centers. So data centers, we know we're pushing forward with growth. We need to think about electrical. We need to think about infrastructure. I think infrastructure needs to come before we have any plans. We need to put that through first and plan accordingly. Again, it needs to follow that comprehensive plan. But these take a power source, water usage. We've been contested with the water usage piece with the closed loop system, right? But we're still unsure. District 2 is primarily rural and agricultural. So as the District 2 representative, I need to think about how data centers change the character of the community. Growth and moving forward with conversations surrounding data centers needs to be done in a thoughtful way that we know is done consistent with the existing planning or the comprehensive plan, and just being cautious and identifying any negative effects that may have on our constituents and the residents of Lincoln County. Prison. All right. So how do we move forward? I think being on the commission, I would love to see a large sense of transparency. I would love to start with from the ground. I would say I did work alongside the nonprofit organization that was able to keep that outside of Lincoln County. And so one of the reasons that I'm here or seeking this appointment is because of the influence that that group had in Lincoln County, and really the grassroots effort, how people collaborated and worked together. And I think that we can build that and bring that into the commission as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Schmidt?
Well, along the same lines, Maddie, I'm going to rephrase the question, but now you've been a professor at University of Sioux Falls,
Correct.
right next to Augustana University.
It's true.
I said that for what obvious reasons, but
That's right.
maybe if you don't know, we've had a long and good rivalry. Describe a time when you, as a department head, have had to make a very unpopular or difficult decision, but you knew it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely, I understand. And I know where you're coming from, as I know you've had to make similar decisions during your time as a commissioner as well. So before my time as a professor, I had the opportunity to work in public education as a government teacher for over a decade. And so really, the idea of governance is what's important, and I have a keen understanding of how government works. I understand parliamentary procedure, which is a huge blessing when you're on the commission and can understand what that looks like moving forward, right? And so when we think about representation, or what that looks like as a commissioner or someone that has to make hard decisions, we know that there are three variances to this. I could act as a trustee, and a trustee is somebody that makes decisions based on their own conscience or their own expertise, right? Based on, you appointed me because I have that confidence and I know what's best for District 2, or you could act as a delegate. And delegate is kind of the reverse of that. So when you think about making those hard decisions, you're strictly going to follow the explicit desires of your constituents. What are they telling me? And that third role that you have as somebody that is appointed or elected is to make a decision as a politico. And the politico is that balance of the two. That's where you're bringing in, here's what I think, as your representative, is the best move for our county, what I'm hearing from the other commissioners, and what all of the districts need to balance together. And then here are what my constituents are saying, and how are we going to blend this? So is that easy? No. But is that the best way forward? Honestly, I don't know, but I think that's how I see myself governing. I want to hear from the people, but I also want to make sure that I'm doing what is best for the representatives, because look at the specific and unique gift that you've been given to be the voice of the people in your district in this fast-growing, incredible county.
Commissioner Putnam?
What do you feel about like Betty's values comparatively?
Yeah.
The previous commissioner?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Betty, and I do appreciate that question. I do think that Betty and I have very similar views on a lot of policies. Some policies that I would say come in front of this body, or things that I would like to focus on, would be these strong infrastructure pieces, fiscal responsibility, making sure that we are sufficiently investing in that infrastructure, low taxes, but again, that transparent government, which I think Betty was very interested in. She wanted to make sure that all cards were on the table, and I would love to do the same and continuing with that.
Thank you.
How many meetings have you attended, commissioner meetings, or watched online?
That is a great question. Multiple, I would say at least over 10 for sure. Can't count them on both hands, Doug. We're going over that.
Thank you.
Then what about farm, livestock and, grain farming, stuff like that?
Perfect. So, Doug, if I was gonna tell you a story, I'm gonna give you 2 truths and a lie. You ready? Okay, 1, I've been to Thailand. 2, my first job ever was raising pigs. And 3, I have 17 siblings. Which one's the lie?
Well, I don't know.
Well, I do not have 17 siblings, I'll tell you that right now. So as a Lincoln County girl, you don't really have a choice but to raise livestock at some point. So I have an agricultural background, but no joke, all of my friends had turned 16, they were ready to get jobs. I wasn't there yet, but if there's one thing that you need to know about me, it's that I don't back down and I'm a really hard worker. Grit is part of who I am. So I went out and I bought 100 pigs and I raised them over the summer. Best money I've ever made to this day in a summer. So hard worker, I understand livestock, I understand agriculture. Again, that comprehensive plan comes back into play, but that's where I can be the person to best represent District 2.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one question, I'm just getting it out of your letter of interest.
Yeah.
That you want to contribute to the continued success of Lincoln County. How do you see yourself contributing to the continued success of Lincoln County?
I think the beauty of that, Commissioner Landine, is balancing the significant growth that we're facing in the northern part of the county with preserving that rural and agricultural life that I am going to have to advocate for and powerfully advocate for as the representative of District 2, just because it's in contrast so much with what our other districts are. And I do think we've done a great job of doing that so far. We know that's nothing new. That's been going on for quite some time. You've seen the extensive growth that takes place, and I think that I would like to continue making those fiscally responsible decisions with how much it costs to grow so quickly, but also just maintaining that way of life that we hold dear in this county.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any final questions from the commissioner?
Well, I always like to know about, I like our staff. I have a very soft spot for all of our workers here because you've never seen a more dedicated group of people than what we have here. And we should learn to appreciate all their efforts. So what would you do to motivate staff members, or how, for compensation or for rewards, or do you have any ideas? Or maybe what you use for your own staff?
Well, Jim, I will tell you this. I think the most important thing that you will build around that are relationships, right? You come before meetings, you stay after meetings, you know the staff, and I think that's incredibly important, and that's something that I strive to do in my professional role as well. Anyone in the room that's here in my support can tell you the same thing, my ability to build relationships, and that can't really be replicated. And I think it does a lot in the way of motivation, in terms of people's productivity, in terms of their effort, but also in terms of how we can build relationships to move forward in positive ways.
Thank you.
Yeah, you
Thank
bet.
All right,
I have
thank you.
39 seconds left. I have a quick question, 35. What are you looking for in the person that you appoint? What attributes or qualities?
For me, I think it's the ability to play that quasi judicial role where you don't come into something prejudging it, and every application that comes before you is taken on a case-by-case basis.
That's beautiful.
That's it for me.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Judgment. Fair judgment.
Appreciate that.
Sometimes that's hard because you got to balance one side or the other. But that's an excellent question, by the way.
Yeah, you bet.
Anybody else?
Well, I promise I can bring both to the table. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, next applicant up is Linda Montgomery.
Good evening, Commissioners. Linda Montgomery from Fairview, South Dakota. I stand here before as a candidate for Betty Otten's job, and I'll tell you the most important things you need to know about me, and I think some of you know me well enough, is that I believe in my Lord Jesus Christ, and my commitment to Him is to serve Him and my fellow man. The next is I'm a retired Master Sergeant from the United States Army Reserve with 23 years of service. And there, my commitment was to serve, to protect the Constitution of the United States from enemies, foreign and domestic. Very important to me, always have been, took that many, many years ago, and I still honor that to this day. The other commitment I have is I'm a retired nurse practitioner. That encompassed my whole adult life, basically, was medicine. I always wasn't a nurse practitioner, but one thing that the commitment there is to do no harm. And that has, those are the commitments. Other than there is another one, it's my party affiliation is Republican, same as Commissioner Otten, and she won the general election, which meant she was competing against other parties. Betty was one of the people that, even though we always did not get and see eye to eye, the one thing she taught me was to show up and suit up. She didn't teach me that, I watched her do that. And that is what I've tried to do these last years with the commission. I've also gone to the Planning and Zoning Commissions. We can hardly apply for a job without knowing what you all have been through and go through and how hard you fight and how fair you are at times and how the differences can melt into a blended decision, whether we want to or not. That's what we need to work for in life and any kind of committee you work with, and especially in the county commission meetings. I guess that is, very shortly, that is my desire to serve this community to the best of my ability with the commitments I have made that I've already stated. You are the pulse of Lincoln County. You are the leaders and you do the finances of Lincoln County that everyone in this county needs to look at, and we have our trust in our officials, and that all the items are discussed in a timely manner and public input is taken. I think that is one of the best things about being a commissioner that I see in you all. And that's pretty much what I have, if you want to start with your questions.
All right. Commissioner Aaron's?
Linda, good evening. Thank you for being here. You've been at a lot of meetings, so you're a familiar face, so thank you. I can already tell maybe folks are going to start to triangulate or calibrate on my blanket questions. So
That's
maybe
all right.
let me provide a little preface here. In order to create a comprehensive plan, we have to, That's what I would call the legislative process, where you get to decide what the rules say, and then after you decide what the rules say, people file an application, and you have to determine whether they're in conformance therewith. I want to talk about on the front side, where we have to have a legislative role. So when it comes to the legislative part of these big issues that are confronting the county, dairies in the south, possible data centers in the north, and then I'd also like to hear your thoughts on the process that was followed when the state went through the issue of wanting to build a prison here in Lincoln County.
Thank you. Being retired, I have been able to go to as many legislative sessions and sit in on committees and testify in committees about these very things. You're governed by what our state decides during those sessions. It has taught me a lot. You know, you talk about the dairies, and along with that, and it goes all the way down. It's fake meat, it's meat injected with hormones, it's antibiotics, whatever. And the dairies, even in the state, I know we talk about it on a personal level in planning and zoning. And I don't make it to as many of those meetings, but I should make more, because you guys pass rules following the comprehensive plan regarding dairies, and the one that's coming up right now in planning and zoning is coming back to you, and they've set up some guidelines for you to follow, and you will argue that among yourselves at this commission, taking into heart what the planning and zoning has worked through. I think they've been working through it since January. The data centers out in Pierre was also as contentious as it is here, and for a good reason. Yes, we do need some data centers. We do not need mega data centers. That will destroy our water, our electricity. Electricity will go up. The quality of the air and the sound will be a maximum problem for your constituents. I am not an expert in this area. That's why I go to so many things, so I can listen. I went to the energy conference that was held last spring. I forget the name of it, forgive me. And they were pro data centers, and you need to listen to the pros and the cons, and then make decisions based on what is good for the public. The prison, when that came to almost be in Lincoln County, that was a tell, and it motivated a lot of people to become involved in government. I think that was one of the biggest things that when something is going on that affects the people, they all become involved, and I love it, because that's what we need to do with government. We need to become involved. We need to know the facts. We need to talk to our commissioners and listen to what they have to say, because most of the time, they have more information than we do, but sometimes the people have more information. And so it's a give and take on all levels. I'm not sure I answered your question to the best of my ability. Okay?
Linda, you've been to more commission meetings than a lot of people. You've sat and you've listened. If you had to say, what is the biggest challenge do you think Lincoln County faces now and in the future?
You know, I think one of our biggest challenges is we have a comprehensive plan. We do. We have a good comprehensive plan. The difficulty will be staying within that comprehensive plan. Because it's really easy to take one step out of that comprehensive plan and keep going because of this sounds really good for Lincoln County, but in our comprehensive plan and what the people of Lincoln County want, and I give you that there's a south and a north to Lincoln County, and to come up with a plan that works, I believe that our current comprehensive plan works. Hardest thing for us to do will to stick with it. I think that's our biggest challenge.
All right. Doug?
What about the southern part of the county with the farms and cattle and hog confinements and stuff? What's your view on that?
I went to a planning and zoning meeting. Commissioner Schmidt was there. It was probably one of the best public meetings I've ever been to. And people are concerned. We have people that have lived in this county forever. They're fifth-generation farmers. A big business comes in and loads up and comprehensive plan, wants to ease out more and wants to have more head. They want to be bigger. They want to, but the goal for your commissioners is what does it do, what is the public good? I know it sounds wonderful we're going to get a few more tax dollars. That's fine. However, what does it do to what Lincoln County looks like? To the people who actually live here, pay taxes here, what does it look like for them? And again, that last planning and zoning meeting, they got a good plan coming to you guys. I really believe they're still working on it. And they're working on it by listening to the people, bringing it forward. And like I said, I've never seen a meeting done so well as far as taking public comment. It was really well done, and I think that you're going to what's going to show up on your desk is a pretty good plan. I'm sure it needs tweaking, but I believe that we need to protect our land. We need to protect our resources. When you drive around some of the bigger dairies or the bigger herds, pigs, whatever, is there a space for them? Yeah, but when do we call enough is enough? And I think that is one of the other important things that this commission decides, is when is enough enough.
Thank you.
I'm going to try and phrase this so it makes sense, but you're saying that you are against hyperscale data centers, correct?
Correct.
But what if the rules in front of you allow for them?
Good question. Then it's one of those things, you watch it out in Pierre. I dealt with it in the military, yes. They told us we could go do this. But it comes down to being, there can be one person that expresses an opinion. It might not be well liked, but sometimes that still small voice or that person crying in the wilderness, something might make sense. And just because they say we can do it, people in public office need to still look at themselves and say, is this right? Is it the right time? Is it the right place? And is it right for our people? And I think, yes, when we get all the go signs going, sometimes as elected officials, we need to put on the brakes and go, now wait a minute. Is this truly, truly right for Lincoln County and its people? If it is, if I get convinced that this is the only way to go, and it should pass, I may not give you a unanimous vote, but once it's voted on, then it's just like being in the military. I don't care who's in control, what president I was a soldier under. Once they got elected, my job was to serve. And that's the way I would consider any of those difficult situations. If it was passed, I have to abide by it. but I'm going to give my own opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Next applicant we have is Dwayne Carlson.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm fifth generation. My great-grandmother's parents broke sod here, and I'm ecstatic that I'm able to come and serve. I've been on the township board for a number of years, and I've attended the Citizens Day out in Pierre and been able to be a part of that. And I'm a committee man for Lincoln County, and it was a blessing to be able to be out in Rapid City and vote people in to the Republican convention. We enjoyed that tremendously. My wife and I live on a small acreage, and we own and operate Carlson Consulting. It's a small repair facility that we repair on site. So we go right to individuals, farms, and anywhere there's a breakdown that we're called, we go and take care of that. I've been here for a number of years, coming to the courthouse here and expressing my interest in some of the issues that we've had. And I feel that our southern area of our District 2 needs to be represented by somebody that's been involved in the everyday operations of farm community. So all the constituents that I have are very similar to the ones that we have in this county. I work for a lot of them, and I hear them talking about what they'd like to see done here. I agree with Linda. We had one of the most productive meetings in the zoning office, in the zoning chambers the other night that I've seen in a long time. And it's a blessing to have that, because we're here to work together for the greater good. I'm ready for your questions.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Aaron's?
Dwayne, thank you for being here tonight. You know, one of the roles you get to serve as a county commissioner is you get to serve as a legislator, legislating what the comprehensive plan may or may not say. In that regard, and as it relates to siting here in Lincoln County, what do you think about dairies, data centers? And then also, what do you think about the process that the state went through and subjected the county to? Well, the state tried to push their will on the county, is what my perspective was on that. And I'm certainly glad that we had a number of individuals that were willing to put a lot of dollars on the line and make sure that they got the public input and public backing to help make sure that that didn't happen. And that's part of our process that we absolutely need. We need the people to be more interactive and not complacent. And we seen that in that operation there. And it was great to see that we were able to do that. The large data centers, I've not had an opportunity to go up to Ellendale and see what they've had in North Dakota, but I've been one of the opponents for one reason. They want to come in and have their will on us, is what I see on the large data centers. They're pushing to be able to come in and utilize our utilities and our water systems, and we already have a problem on our electric grid. We can't handle that type of a thing. And now if they came in and had their own power and were able to reuse water to an extent where it wasn't going to take away from us, we have aquifers under us that we need to protect. And we need to make sure that those protections are there. The other thing with data centers was they wanted to come in, they're already getting a tax break for coming into South Dakota by not having an income tax. And I stood up in one of our meetings for towns and townships, and I said that to them. I said, why should we give you a tax break? Why shouldn't every one of our farmers get that tax break? They're going to be utilizing millions of dollars of equipment that needs to be changed out quite frequently.
And those tax dollars need to come to South Dakota if they're going to be here. And I believe there's a place for them, but maybe not right in Lincoln County. The same with the dairies. If the dairies want to come in here, I don't have a problem with them in a small operations. We could have 10 or 15 young farmers, give them an opportunity to progress and help them out, where they would turn the dollars, the tax dollars in our area over, and they'd stay in our area. When you start looking at corporate entities, those dollars don't stay here. They have investors, and those investors get those dollars. They go out of our area. So I've had a problem with some of that.
Commissioner Schmidt, any questions?
Dwayne, your roots run pretty deep. You know, you've been here a long time.
Thank you.
So what is the burning issue for you to want to become a county commissioner? If you had to isolate one or two reasons.
Well, one of your questions there was personnel. You feel very strongly about personnel. I think you can have a system that works great for personnel that is a reward system where that individual goes over and above what they're expected to do. That's where you need to reward that individual on the employee part. We have to have good employees in order to make things work right. The county needs people that understand that there is multiple sections here of development and agricultural land, and we need people to be able to distinguish between those. And I feel I'm one of those people that can distinguish between those situations.
Okay. Another question, Dwayne, is that in balancing, you mentioned balancing, we got a balance here between population and growth and rural, trying to keep Lincoln County ag base intact, you know. So what's your feeling about one of the issues which commissioners are going to deal with is these building permits and how they affect. So from your vantage point, you've watched this for quite a while. What's your take on that?
Well, that comprehensive plan looked like it was going to keep about 2 miles alongside I-29 for business growth.
Yeah.
And then.
That's true.
And that looks like a good plan as long as we can try and stay to that. But comprehensive plan, from what I've understood in the past, is a guideline. And we got to be careful not to deviate too much from that guideline because it affects others in our area, especially in the ag community. So it'd be nice if we could keep that narrowed up like it is and stick to some of what had been. There was a guidance council for that comprehensive plan. I'd made it to a few of those meetings myself, and there was people that were expressing their concerns about that. And I think we need to keep a limit on the growth in the farm communities. Try and keep that to the point where the farms that are there, especially the farms that are Century Farms, so they can actually expand if they need to or want to.
I didn't mean to take. Doug?
I think you answered about half my questions. You've been township, on the township board for a long time?
Over 20 years, yes, sir.
Over 20 years?
Yeah.
You've gotten to know the other townships and what they're doing and
Yes.
how they're doing it?
And that's been part of the blessing. Here recently, we've been kind of co-oping and getting more interest in townships, talking to each other and making sure that we had that collaboration so that what affected one township, we weren't asking for anything more in a township next to it than what the first township puts an ordinance in, let's say. We're trying to get that to multiply so everybody would understand and be on the same page.
Thank you.
So one of the challenges that Lincoln County is facing right now is providing ambulance service to rural Lincoln County. What solution, if any, do you think you bring to the table as part of that?
Ambulance services have been provided in our area mostly by volunteer. And we've seen a decrease in the volunteers, and it's been hard to recruit people to want to take on the responsibilities. I think we need to try and make sure that we put some things in place so we get those individuals more comfortable about coming and helping serve. Because those ambulance services are they're a charging service, but they're actually a service to the people. And we need to make sure that we can try and make it easier for them to get certified and feel comfortable in that position.
Okay, and the county doesn't currently have any ambulance service itself, so the rural areas are depending on the municipalities to provide that service. So how would you help fund those services for rural Lincoln County if the city say, hey, we're no longer willing or able to continue to do that?
We'd have to look at some type of budgeting for that. I don't know what the process is for sure, but fire departments are in the same deal. Maybe there's some federal funding that we could look into that would help with that. There's, like the BIG program funds the bridges. There may be a funding program that we could look into to help with that as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's all I had. Anybody else have any last questions?
Dwayne, I'm not going to ask you that. This is, because you don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to get into rural roads and bridges and what a challenge we have. So in your capacity as a commissioner, would you favor extra opt-outs, levies to just try to maintain a road grid? That's not a fair question, I realize, but we don't get fair questions either, so.
No, I
Give
understand.
me a thought on
Yep,
that,
thank
because
you.
that's pretty important. I mean, that's your bread and butter.
Absolutely. I've been a big proponent of the RAIF program, as you well know.
Yep.
It's just been a fantastic program, and somehow we need to, as a state, fund that program for multiple years. That needs to happen. The townships need to be in charge of their roads, and they need to be able to take care of those roads. But at 1.8% of what the taxable value is, there's no way that you can continue to do that. So those types of fundings, we need to look into a state type of making sure that RAIF program is funded for 5 to 10 years, and maybe all the time.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next applicant is Herman Otten.
Hello, Commissioners. Feels a little different on this side of the podium and the desk, not gonna lie. So, everybody here knows me. My name's Herman Otten. I've been a lifelong resident of the district. And I've served in a lot of different capacities. I'm gonna read my letter because I think that explains me very well, and then everybody in the audience gets to know a little bit more of me if they don't already know me. Myself and my family were lifelong residents of Lincoln County, with many of those years living in T. My father was born in a house that still stands in T. We now have lived 12 years on an acreage/hobby farm, which was my great aunt and uncle's place in between T and Lennox, where we raised chickens, horses, goats, mini cow sweet corn, a little alfalfa, and can't forget the dogs and the cats. My wife and I have a blended family with 3 awesome kids. Allie and Hayden graduated from T Area High School, and Andy graduated from Harrisburg High School. My daughter Allie graduated from SDSU. Andy attends SDSU and is working on her PhD, and she works in the cow-calf barn up there, as horses and animal welfare is big for her and our family. And my son attends USD, and he's going there for accounting, attends the Beacom School Business down there. My daughter Allie had our first granddaughter while we were up at the convention in Pierre on Saturday. so it was kind of hard to hang around up there when that was going on back here. Over my years, I have seen Lincoln County grow, change, and transform from really small towns to growing and thriving cities from one end of the county to the other, while still keeping agriculture the #1 industry in our county and state. But with that growth comes challenges that must be navigated. Water drainage, highways, bridges, police, ambulance, and fire protection are ongoing concerns. Solar farms, wind towers, pipelines, CAFOs have all been on the commissioner's plate over the last couple of years, and we can't forget about the prison. With the growth Lincoln County expects to see, there will be continuous pressure on the agricultural way of life, especially in the northern portions of the county. Lincoln County is quite diversified, and proper planning will be required for today and beyond. I believe I am well-rounded on the issues, and I can serve Lincoln County well. Personally, I have owned and operated Otten Construction Inc. for over 30 years. I have either worked for my father, worked with him as a partner, or on my own in the construction industry. We specialize in new home construction, residential remodeling, and a little land development over the years. I was just recognized for 30 years of membership with the Home Builders Association of the Sioux Empire. Construction always has been my life and always will be my profession. My wife and I also own a small business called Pet Wants with a storefront in Sioux Falls in the Lincoln County portion. We started by operating the business out of our garage during COVID, moved to a small space in T, and now we have been in Sioux Falls at the storefront for 5 years. I have always been a firm believer of good government, and that takes people who are willing to give their time to serve. In 1996, at the age of 28, I was elected as mayor of T during a very tough time for the city, but with a lot of hard work, we went from having a city hall packed with unhappy citizens every meeting to being lucky if anyone showed up to a meeting. I have been humbled that the citizens have elected me to be their voice over the years. I have been elected to serve as mayor of T City Council for 9 years, 8 years in the State House of Representatives, and 4 years in the State Senate. 30 years of that time, I also served on the T Volunteer Fire Department, holding the positions of president, captain, and first assistant chief. During my time serving the people, I have built bridges with many different individuals, businesses, and organizations. While not always agreeing, you will very rarely have 100% agreement on an issue. As the greatest president of our time, Ronald Reagan, said, the person who agrees with you 80% of the time is a friend in an alley, not a 20% traitor. That is a mantra I try to live and serve by. I believe that being a great public servant requires a person to do more listening, asking questions, than talking. And my answers will reflect that when you ask me the questions, because I am not long-winded. So don't be afraid to ask a follow-up if you feel you need more detail. Thank you.
Commissioner Aaron's?
Good evening. Thank you for being here, throwing your hat in the ring. You were in the State Senate, State House. You made the rules.
Now, I got a record to stand on, so I'm not afraid of that.
Yep, here in the county commission, you would make the rules. I think the #1 issue affecting the southern half of the county is obviously that comprehensive plan. It guides a lot of what's going on down there right now, and it animates and generates a lot of feelings, as well as how folks are going to plan and organize their lives and their businesses. Give me your thoughts on the dairy, data centers, and then also what you thought about how the state, Governor Roden, went about that prison process here in Lincoln County.
Okay, well, the comprehensive plan is very important. I mean, we dealt that with the city of T. You know, it helps provide for the proper planning and growth of a community, or in this particular case, a county, have the right zoning ordinances in place to try to help guide that growth and guide that into the right places. So that is the start of 2 of those 3 issues. With the dairies in the southern portion, it's been a few years, but I have toured one of them down there, and I know dairies and CAFOs are not always liked by the neighbors, but yet they're an important part of the agricultural community. So the dairies, I don't know what you guys got going on down south. There's obviously I'm catching that there's something going on down south with the dairies and comprehensive plans. So I'm not sure what that is, but that needs to be worked into that. With the data centers, I've always been a firm believer that if a data center is allowed to come into a place under the right rules and regulations, that one, they cannot adversely affect our power and our water. I mean, we're existing customers. I'm a customer of Southeastern Electric and South Lincoln Rural Water. I don't feel that that type of business or any other one should be able to come in there and then all of a sudden cause rolling brownouts with your power or not be able to have water pressure at 6 o'clock in the morning for everybody to take a shower or wash clothes at 9 o'clock at night. So I think they have to be somewhat self-sustaining. You know, they have to go through that to figure out how that's going to work. To the prison, that actually starts with, as you know, Governor No. I mean, she's the one that started driving that train down the tracks, and, you know, there wasn't any brakes on it with her, no matter who was talking to her, and frankly, she didn't talk to me much. I was not her favorite. So, but luckily, I'll say that, in my opinion, that she took a different job, and Larry Roden became governor, and has a different mentality and a different thought process. And he put the brakes on that, which I think, personally, I believe if Christie was still governor, that thing would be sitting in Lincoln County, because I don't think she would have ever quit. So when Larry pumped the brakes and Sweetman's came up, hallelujah. It was the best thing that happened for everybody involved, so.
Thank you. Commissioner Schmidt, any questions?
Herman?
You don't know
you've
me,
got
so you
quite a
don't got any
record.
questions.
You've been very successful legislative. What unique quality, Herman, would you bring to this commission, do you think? What would you
I
bring?
think my experience in serving and the knowledge of how the process works, dealing with people. I mean, throughout that whole time, you know, being a mayor and a city council member is far worse than being a county commissioner, because you're gonna run into them at the gas station, the post office, the ball games, and everybody's got an issue. And you gotta be able to navigate that, you know, and I think I've done a pretty good job of navigating it over the years. I have a good relationship with a lot of people who don't necessarily like me, or like what I stand for or how I vote, but that's not, you know, a consistent basis. They always pick out one here or there that they disagree with.
Okay. Doug, go ahead. I got another question, but go ahead, Doug.
Well, no, if you got another question,
No,
go.
I'll wait for a minute.
I guess I'm back to the farm, and hogs and stuff. What's your, thoughts on the farming community down south and around?
I mean, Lincoln County is still an agricultural county yet. I mean, if you could just get rid of the top 10 miles of Lincoln County, I know it's all corns and beans and hogs and cattle and dairies. I mean, I live on an acreage in between T and Lennox. The Poppins family has a cattle feedlot a mile north of me and another one 3 miles south of me. And I don't think there's a problem with it. I don't think anybody else does. And I think those are important components of the agricultural community. So I'm not a person who is against ag, and I'm a person who's typically supported ag. I mean, I don't like to talk about myself too much, but I did receive an award from the South Dakota Corn Growers for outstanding legislative leadership at their annual meeting here a few years back. They don't give that out to somebody who doesn't support ag.
My question, Herman, is that Lincoln County is approaching 80,000 people, you know? And what challenges, because you've been in the legislature, you've looked at budgets, you've looked at how, you know, every year the state balances the budget. And yet a county like Lincoln, living on 20% of the tax dollars that come in, and having expanded responsibility to a population, how would you go about addressing the long-range challenges that presents?
As it pertains to budget issues?
Pardon?
As it pertains to budget issues? I mean,
And socials, public safety, all of those necessary things.
you know, everybody has a budget. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, when you make a budget, somebody's gonna get left out somewhere on something, you know. The growth in Lincoln County, we've been very fortunate in the fact that we've had that growth and the tax dollars it brings in. The commercial growth obviously helps offset what owner-occupied individuals are paying. So the more commercial growth that we actually get on the north end of the county, the better it's gonna be for everybody else throughout the county. Outside of raising taxes, you know, you unfortunately have to pick and choose some winners sometime, and that's a yearly basis when it comes to a budget. There's no magic wand to wave to make more money to make everybody happy.
Okay?
Herman, I had asked another applicant earlier about the rural ambulance crisis that we are currently seeing come to fruition as municipalities are telling us that they're no longer going to provide that service out into the rural areas. And what would you bring to the table to help solve that problem?
Well, I don't have a ton of experience with what the ambulances are experiencing right now. I'm familiar with some of the background stuff with Lennox and the issues they've had, and I'll be honest, I don't know exactly where they're at today. I know they've been doing a lot of work, held a lot of meetings on that, and it comes down to funding. You know, in the municipalities. I mean, back in my day when I was on the fire department in T, we ran into that issue on the fire department. And it's not all that different than what the ambulances deal with. The townships, the city felt like they were compensating in the budget for protection provided to the townships outside. So the city wanted to start cutting the budgets. So I was lucky enough to be president of the fire department at that time, which runs the general business for the department. I had to go out and work with everybody and come up with a solution on that, which we did. We changed the funding formula that was in place and made it more equitable for everybody involved. And that's what's going to have to happen here with the ambulances. I mean, somebody's going to have to step up, and it's going to have to be in conjunction with each other, whether that's the townships contributing some more, the county contributing some more, the municipality saying, hey, you know what, we get it. We got the majority of the people, we get the majority of the cost.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah. Herman, you were a pretty successful legislator. You got reelected all the time,
Thank you.
you know? So how did you communicate with your constituency that you served, and how would you bring that to the commission position on communication with your constituents in this District 2?
Well, since District 2 is so large, I'm obviously going to have to travel down south to some of the communities down there to different events and introduce myself to a few more people so they know who I am and not just somebody up north who doesn't know or care about them down there. And when I ran for the legislature, you know, I went out and I talked to people. You know, I made myself available. I went to events. You know, people after a while get to know you. So if you're out there in the communities, you're available to those individuals. And, you know, between that and social media a little bit, which I don't play with a whole lot unless I'm going back and forth with Commissioner Ahrens on housing eligibilities, you know, I'm always very good about responding to emails. My phone number's always been out there. People are always allowed to call me, always allowed to talk to me, send me a message. I might not get back to you for a day or two or three, but I don't ignore anybody whether they agree or disagree with me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Herman. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next applicant that we have is Eric Enabo.
Thank you, Commissioners, for this opportunity to speak, and I want to thank all the community for being here and expressing your interest. This is important, and thanks to the candidates who expressed an interest in filling this position. I probably would not be here except for the requests and encouragements of my constituents urging me to interview for this position. Although I did have one friend who told me, why in the heck would you do that? Now you're going to get all that hate mail. Many of you know I grew up in Highland Township on a family farm adjacent to where my great-grandfather homesteaded in 1868. Times were tough back there, and they were in 1980. So my dad encouraged me to stay in school and get one of those cushy office jobs where I didn't need to work so hard and maybe make a little bit of money. When my father died, and after 10 years in the aerospace industry, I decided I didn't want to work for one company all my life, and I felt the responsibilities of the farm and its conservation that I was taught. So I moved back to South Dakota and continued the farming operation. People in Utah thought that was a marvelous idea, and the people here thought, is he crazy? Well, I've been at it now for over 30 years. You probably have had the time to review my letter of interest, which states some of my qualifications, but I did forget to mention that I held this position once before in the late 70s. I was elected county commissioner in Boise State. That's a joke. Somehow, that small tidbit has never left my mind. Back around the turn of the century, the county needed a part-time building inspector to help enforce building codes. I believe, Jim, you were on the board of commissioners when they hired me. As a leader, I have always felt that it is my responsibility for the actions for the people in my department and the people who are working for me. As you know, we've never had a building official, and as an inspector, I did my best to fill that position as well as my inspections, regardless of any ramifications. I was honored to ask to serve on the township board a few years ago. It has given me the opportunity to appreciate all the hard work that the auditor does and the Board of Equalization. I firmly believe in the premise of we the people, and that agriculture is vital to our nation. It's vital to our state, and especially here in Lincoln County. Farmers and ranchers comprise only 2.5% of the population, and they need a voice as well. I believe in township government, where you get more people involved that give insight to the county on difficult decisions. Most of District 2, as we talked about, is comprised of ag land. Our comprehensive plan is set up to keep industry from intruding into our ag area. And you have more than one candidate from the southern portion of the county associated with agriculture. And no matter who you choose, I ask you to keep that in mind. If you choose me, I pledge to ask questions, get townships involved, and do the best of my ability to serve all the people of District 2. And I want to thank you for your hard work, your dedication, and your consideration. I know it's not easy. So with that, I'm dreading the questions.
Go ahead, Commissioner Aaron's.
Eric, good evening. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Thank you for being here. You brought up the comprehensive plan. You're a longtime building inspector. You've been out there. You know the deal. You served as a county commissioner at Boise State. But
For Canton.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, give me your thoughts on these big issues. Dairy, I mean, there is this complex interplay between growth and development and maintaining the agricultural base, but some of the most contentious meetings we've had is when the dairy comes in here and wants to expand.
Exactly.
And then, of course, as a commissioner, you would have a role as a legislator in writing the rules. And so I want to know, what are your views and what you think the rules ought to be with regard to dairies and data centers? And then also, I want to hear what you thought about how the state put us through that issue of the prison. Because, the state legislature and Governor Roden, they didn't stop until the State House voted twice on the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so lots of people bring up local control. I want to know your thoughts on all that.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm here, because, living down there and being involved with the township, there's a lot of concern with the dairies there. Not that they're just a big business and an organization, but they do a lot of damage to our roads. They use it a lot, and I think we've learned a little in the past of maybe what not to do to take care of our roads. Luckily, my township is a little bit out of there, but at the same time, the big dairies incorporate a lot of farms around the area, and they move and they use our roads as well. So my thoughts on the dairy, and I would value input from my constituents is that maybe limit how many big ones that we have. We have a major one down there right now, maybe limit the size. And I think the planning and zoning is working on the issue of working on setbacks, so it might be a little more difficult for them to come in and the large ones be everywhere. I think that's a step in the right direction. But I would support the people in my community and what they think regarding that. As far as the prison, I thought it was a bum deal, the way that got kind of ramroded down into Lincoln County here. And I really applaud all the work by some of our legislators that took an issue with that and kind of forced the issue back. There was great community support. So I think at the end, when it was all said and done, they moved that to the right place, and in order to keep that land more available to the farming community on that. I do think on a state level that there needs to be addressed the fact that a prison is rehabilitation, not just pure punishment. So as they go forward with that, I feel that there should be some good areas where they spend some money on that issue as well as just the physical structure of the prison itself. And was there one third?
Data center?
Data center. I agree with Dwayne. We've talked about that at Association of Towns and Townships meeting. And I think there's definitely a need for data centers. We need them for national defense, but I think we have to be careful where we put them. And just because it might be legal that they can come in here, I think we have to legislate where they go. And I don't think here in Lincoln County, and especially here south of Sioux Falls, is a place for them. I think there's better places that could be more isolated. And I firmly believe that if they're coming in, they need to pay their way. They do get a tax break in South Dakota, but our taxpayers shouldn't have to pay to support them. They should be on their own.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Eric, you were at Boy State, you were a county commissioner?
Yeah, that was the only thing I got elected for.
The only thing I ever made was a mayor.
That's pretty good.
Not a very big community.
Yeah.
Eric, you have been a building inspector, been up and down the county, all over. You've seen the growth. What's your major concern that the county is not addressing as far as the proliferation of growth in housing that goes into rural areas?
Well, as a building inspector, I was always concerned of the fact that businesses were starting to move outward from the city, and a lot of times they didn't have a comprehension of what the requirements for a building that size. We were fortunate in a lot of those that the buildings were small enough, we didn't have to worry about things like means of egress, fire protection, and so forth, and setbacks. And so I strived to try to get us to legislate some requirements where people coming in for a building permit had to decide what they were building before they start to building it, and not just call it a contractor shop, and then the next thing you know, you might have a hazardous operation going in there. So I think careful detail needs to be looked at on those building permits, and that the builders should have a plan and know what they're doing for that. As far as our residential growth, there's a lot of issues in the transfer of building eligibilities. And again, I'm always one that I like to listen to people and get everyone's thoughts on that, because most of the time I don't have a definite answer, but as I ask more questions, then I like to take my time and be slow in order to think things through. But on building eligibilities, I feel, at least down in the agricultural area, that current 4 to a quarter and no more kind of fits the bill. And I kind of hate to see on a personal level that building eligibilities be transferred around like common stock and have our posterity in the future have to be buying eligibilities in order to build on their own land.
You know, we talk a lot about, Eric, about people, if you're from the north, to understand the needs and challenges that face the ag sector. You live in Highland Township. How would you go about recognizing the challenges that are facing the residents in and around Lenox or T or Harrisburg? So you get their point of view.
I'd ask a lot of questions there, because as of now, I do not know all their issues that they're facing, and I realize that. So I know I'd have them contact their planning and zoning. I'd have them contact us as commissioners, and to do their best in order to answer their questions.
Okay.
Building inspector, I guess I had a question about the old courthouse. What do you think about that?
I'm a history buff in my family. I like to see things preserved that can be, and I would hate to see anything happen to our courthouse, our existing courthouse, the way it was built. But at the same time, we have to do it within a budget, and it doesn't have to be the most Taj Mahal of all restorations, but I would like to see in some way have it preserved, and I think we can do that in a decent budgetary process.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions for you. Schmidt got one of mine. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Eric.
your time.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Nick Abbas.
Good evening, Commissioners. Nick Abbas from Worthing. I guess a little bit about me. I've lived here my entire life, grew up on a farm. The only time I was gone was just 4 years at college, moved back, built on the family farm. Right after college, I started a business from nothing, and I've been doing that for the past 21 years. Also a fourth-generation farmer. I'm on the planning and zoning for Worthing. I'm on the Lenox Area Community Fund Board. I've been involved with the township, other organizations, other committees, and just been really involved with a lot of things around, a lot giving back to the community. I regularly attend these meetings. I've attended a lot of them, and I've watched everyone in the past 5 years, so I've just really been involved in the community, in the area, and I just have a passion. When I built my house, it's my forever house, and I intend to be here in Lincoln County until I can't make it up the steps anymore. And I'm here for the long haul, so I want to help do what I can to make sure our community, our county stays, moving forward. And then being in District 2, it's more of the rural, it's the farming, the small towns, and I think with that, I grew up on the farm, I've been involved with those communities, I feel like I would be a good representative for the constituents in the rural and the ag part, so I guess we can just hop into the questions and start answering stuff.
All right.
Nick, when we first met, your beard was the same length as mine.
Correct, yeah, and the hair on top of my head was about a quarter of an inch long, so it's
Been a while.
been a transformation.
But thank you for attending those meetings and being involved. I appreciate it. And thanks for throwing your name in the hat with this. If you
Yes.
remember the boutique beef plant
Yes.
issue, where this commission voted for that, and then the folks at Worthing got together and referred that issue successfully.
Yeah, we were able to get a referendum put
Yeah.
together.
So you've been involved in those, you're familiar with those issues.
Yes.
And I want to get your thoughts on the comprehensive plan and the commission, what your views would be if the commission did something like that again. And then I also want to get your take on the data centers and we've been talking about it here all night, and I still can't remember.
The dairy in the prison.
The dairy issue. I think down south, that dairy issue is a big one.
Yes.
Yeah, so fire away.
I guess to hop in first to the prison, I think like a lot of other people have said, it just hate how the state basically said, this is what's happening, and it was out of the control of the county, and transparency in government is always a big word, and people throw it around, but I think that is an excellent example of the lack of transparency and what can happen, that the state just went through, they were going to do what they were going to do, they weren't going to talk about it, there was just no process, and luckily there was a group that fought it and did a wonderful job, so I think that just ties into transparency and openness with stuff to help prevent something like that happening. I guess with the dairy and the data center, with the dairy, I mean, we have to follow the comprehensive plan, and getting a little bit up, Commissioner Schmidt had asked a question on if you're up and you have to vote on something that you might not agree with, but it checks all the boxes, sometimes you have to be the judge and make those tough calls. So some of it starts with the comprehensive plan, planning and zoning, and then you're still taking calls, you're listening to your constituents, and it's just doing the research case by case. With the data centers, District 2 is a unique district where there's a lot of rural, but we do have some towns and bordering up towards T and Harrisburg, and infrastructure is always strained. That's the talk of the data centers, and so making sure the data center is self-supporting would be the very first big question, to not strain any of our infrastructure. But then after that, it's hard to imagine putting it up in the northern part or close to any of the small towns, but then we're also an ag district, so to take away sections of land and losing the tax on that, that's a tough one, that there's a lot of questions that need to be answered before anything like that can move forward. So I think that's something that a lot of research needs to be done, so. Yep.
Nick, you run your own small business. You deal with a lot of homes and things like that. As a commissioner, have you any unique ideas on how you, as a commissioner, that you would address those concerns that you listen to on a day basis like that?
Well, I think tying into that, I think one of my strengths is I listen first. I always want to hear what other people say. I don't want to be the first to speak, the loudest to speak. So in dealing with my business and things in life, I've always found if you listen and get as much information as you can first, then you're making a better decision, and then you can have a debate with someone, and you've gathered the facts. So I think it's starting with listening and gathering information is what I've always found works best, and then having open lines of communication.
If you were selected and you were a commissioner, what would be one of the first things that you would do as a new commissioner?
Well, one thing that I think I would like to do is spend as much of my time as I can meeting with the department heads and getting to know some of the staff. And I have ideas of what the staff do, but I feel like meeting with the heads of the departments and the sheriff's department, it would give a lot better understanding of what they're doing, hear their concerns, and just really see what they're doing. And that way, when, especially we're working with budgets, what they're asking for, what it's going towards, and just getting to know the staff.
Okay. Doug?
You're currently farming and a business?
Yes, I have a landscaping company and I farm.
Okay.
So
So then you are well versed in the cattle and everything then?
yeah, I grew up on a hog farm, and now it's just row crops, but like I said, I've grown up with the agricultural side of things. I was involved heavily in ag in high school, and I've got a lot of connections to farmers, a lot of friends that farm, and so that's something when I've talked to some people about running, they've pointed out that they just think I would represent them well, and just with my connections and the passion that I would be a voice for the rural and the small communities in the southern part of the county.
Thank you.
Yes.
Nick, some of my questions have revolved around, public safety. It is the number one job of the county commission
Yes.
to provide that for its constituents. So how would you go about looking into and digging into the rural ambulance issue that we're currently facing?
Yeah, that's one that, at the moment, I don't have the perfect answer for. I mean, it's a tough issue because serving the rural community it's tough, it's expensive, but if towns stop doing it or providing it, we need to do something. So I think potentially it would just have to start with whether we get a committee together to start looking at stuff, getting experts in, and without us just saying what we're going to do, getting outside opinions, getting the community involved, and then, the tough part is, once we've figured out we could provide this option or that option, then we have to start looking at what those cost and how to work that into the future budget. And then the most difficult thing is if we have to add something in, are there cuts? Are there tax increases? So it's a complex issue that I think we really need to spend time looking into. And, it might not be a bad thing to just start the process, even if it goes nowhere, just having a committee have information for us. That way, if something happens, we're not starting from scratch. So,
Thank you.
yes.
Nick, in your business, and you faced what's the toughest financial decision that you've ever had to make that in order to keep your business going? Was it employees? What was it that you've had to make, and how'd you go about that?
Well, going for 21 years, I could give you pages of lists, and I started in '06, so I really got rolling in '07 and '08, right when the recession hit the hardest. So right off the bat, I had to learn being fiscally responsible, and anytime I spent money foolish, it had massive negative consequences. So right off of starting my business, financial responsibility has been huge, and that's followed me through, and that's helped me over the past 21 years. So that's been a major thing. Another tough one, I guess, is I've had some amazing workers, but then the work kind of ebbs and flows a little bit, so when things get a little shorter, I've had the tough choice of having to let good workers go, friends of mine, and it's difficult, but there just gets to be a point where there's not enough work to go around, so that's, I suppose, one of the other difficult things.
That you made. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Nick.
All right,
you.
thank you.
Commissioners, anybody want to take a break? Alicia, how are you doing?
Let's take a break.
Yeah, it's 8:14. We'll come back at 8:24. Katz, because I was page flipping too much. So, Mr. Katz, do you want to come on up? Go ahead.
So, just, you guys have seen my resume or letter of interest. Just touch on the highlights of that and then go into the questions. But I was born and raised down by Hudson, just west of Hudson on the family farm. So my parents have been farming there my whole life. Went off to college over in Sioux County. Got my bachelor's in finance and accounting. So I love number crunching. I love looking at statistics and spreadsheets. That's a favorite hobby of mine, much to my wife's chagrin. But I love that. I love finding the story behind the numbers as well, though. For every time there's a number, there's a story as to why it is that way. So there could be an issue, there could be a problem. So that's my education. When I graduated from college, it's 2008. Nobody was hiring finance and accounting people in 2008, so I tried all the small areas. Couldn't land a job, so moved up to Sioux Falls, as most of the people in my class did, just because Sioux Falls was growing like crazy. So lived up there for quite a while, had kids, married and had kids, and wanted to get back to the agricultural community that I grew up on the farm. So we purchased an acreage just north of Canton, moved there a few years back. Live on a hobby farm, so nothing as far as production or anything like that, just self-sustaining type thing. So enjoy that quite a bit. My work in Sioux Falls, I was an accountant for quite a few years, private accounting, nothing public, but managed a payroll for a company, a large company in Sioux Falls, had 825 employees. I was the only payroll person, so our annual payroll budget was like 26 million, so that would flow through me. We were operating in 5 different states, so I had to know all the laws there that governed that. I enjoyed that quite a bit. That side, then I got promoted to, in essence, a controller in the company, a sub-controller. So handling the budgeting and cash flow projections. I enjoy that part of work. And then got sick of sitting behind a desk all day, just running the same spreadsheets for people. So started my own company 11 years ago now. Got into property management and rehabbing properties. Went full-time in that. It's a small company, got half a dozen to a dozen employees at any given time, rehabbing and managing properties. Enjoy that a lot. I get a bit of the white collar and a bit of the blue collar. So, yeah. So I've seen my business swell during times of economic prosperity. I'm pulling back a little bit now on the growth aspect of my business. And yeah, so we homeschool our children, so giving them an education in different areas of life. They come with me to work and learn different aspects of the business. And just wanted to, put myself out there for this position, saw it open up, interested. There's many qualified candidates though, so if you guys have questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you.
James, thank you for throwing your name in the hat. You've been in Lincoln County for a while, you've been around. If you are selected as a commissioner, one of the roles is to be a legislator. You get to decide what the comprehensive plan would state. I think that's an issue that's important to a lot of people in the southern end of the county, growth, development, because that also kind of drives the culture, what the neighborhood's going to look like, of course. Please, would you give me your thoughts on, what the rules you think ought to be for dairies and data centers? And also, I want to get your take on if you watched the prison issue and what the state folks put us through and how that all went down and what your thoughts are on that.
Yep, so touching on those kind of one at a time, just my personal thoughts on the three major issues that you talked about and then the general zoning in particular. So as it comes to the prison, I'm not against prisons. We need them, and they have to be someplace. I purchased our current acreage, which is several miles to the east of the proposed site, back when it was still a possibility. So I knew that it was possible that I'd be several miles away from the prison. That didn't bother me personally. I have friends that own a house real close to where the prison would have been. They were mildly concerned with it, but not too extreme. Now, I think the way that the state did it, I disagree with it completely. So I think one of the top priorities of anybody in a public office should be transparency and keeping things out in front of the people, because you work for the people and you have to answer to them. You're supposed to govern for the common good, and when it's done the underhanded way that they did it, I completely disagree with it. Had they been out front and open with it, I wouldn't have been so against it. Now, the process that they went through to get it into Sioux Falls, I much more agree with that, and I think that is in a good spot. I didn't quite agree with how their site planned to pick it here in Lincoln. It didn't make sense with the amount of employment that it needs and to draw from Sioux Falls that far. I didn't understand that at all. But, so I'm glad that they did go up to Sioux Falls. As far as data centers are concerned, so I have a friend who's a city councilor in Sioux Falls. I spoke to him over the winter just because I was trying to understand both sides of the argument. I am for business, I'm for development. And the issues that the city people raised, I could see qualities in that. So the qualities being on mostly water and electric. Now, one of the reasons that they picked Sioux Falls to investigate the area, my friend said, is because Xcel put out this notice that they had extra ability in their region to supply power for this. Now, it's an astronomical amount of power that these need. It's more than doubling the Sioux Falls usage if they would be added. And the worry of the people, though, was that the increase in the structure needed to support that kind of a facility would increase their rates. And according to the local laws, it would not have increased the rates. So if people need additional power, so if this facility needed additional power, they were required to pay for those infrastructure upgrades. So if that is the case, then I had no issue with that. As far as the water issue is concerned, the city gave them two options. One was to use treated water from the sewage plant before it went back into the river, or they could use a closed circuit system, and they opted for the closed system. So they wouldn't, in essence, be using a tremendous amount of water. It would just be looping back through the system. And then there's issues of sound, light pollution, things like that, which if you have appropriate berms and setbacks, that can all be dealt with. I think data centers are going to be a part of the future. I'd much rather have them here than in China. I think we could better maintain that. Now, there is an issue on the longevity of them. They're working currently on seeing if, I know they've been testing for years now on being able to have them at the bottom of the ocean just because of the cooling capabilities of the ocean, and that seems to be a better suited. But then there's also the possibility, one of the world's trillionaires is working on putting them out in space because of the cooling capabilities of that. So the longevity of them might not be that long here in the area. Now, when it comes to like TIFs and things like that for the data centers, I believe I am all for paying less taxes. But anytime you give a TIF or an incentive to somebody to come here, you're in essence taxing other people for the benefit of one other person. And I disagree with that. I think if they're gonna be here, they should pay the local taxes, and they should be a part of the community, supporting it that way. So there are cases of the servers turning over every 5 years, and so that's gonna create additional sales tax and things like that. So that needs to be investigated, but by and large, I don't support tax incentives for that kind of thing. There are benefits for data center. I've got a friend that works at a data center in Sioux Falls, so currently there's 4 or 5 data centers there. So they exist there, nothing near the scope of this one. And he says it's pretty much a ghost town. It's a huge facility and there's like a couple people working. They don't take that many people. So they're easy to maintain and things like that, so, but that's my thoughts on that. And as far as dairies are concerned, I've got a good friend, he owns a dairy west of Sioux Falls. I was just over on his dairy a week ago, helping him cover his alfalfa pile for his cows. I was sitting there right on the dairy, and I couldn't smell the cows, and the cows were 500 feet away from me. So, now granted, I was standing on alfalfa, and alfalfa smells a lot, but I was driving around the facility, couldn't smell anything. My wife, she was this morning up in Baltic with 2 of my children. So Baltic got a windstorm 2 nights ago. And some friends of ours have cousins that own a dairy up there. And she was helping to recover that pile because that pile uncovered. I'm all for dairies. I'm for business like that. I think I think people should be allowed to grow and operate their businesses. I'm all for business, for pro-growth. Now, it can infringe upon other things, other areas of people around them, and so that does need to be considered. So like when it comes up to the zoning issues, it's great to have a 25-year vision for certain areas of the county, because then people can set and make goals based upon that plan that's in place. So the people currently living in those areas might feel constrained now because their plans that they had for their business might not line up with that. So there can be hardships in that area and hard feelings, but it gives people stability to plan for the future. So, which is great for most companies. Most people just want stability. They want to know what the plan is and stick with the plan.
Thank you.
Yep.
James, if you were nominated or selected, what would be the biggest attribute you would bring to the commission?
So I enjoy numbers quite a bit. I enjoy spreadsheets. Anything you can dump into Excel and look at, I'll look at for hours. But mostly I want to know, I enjoy people. I enjoy getting to know the stories of people and understanding that. So anytime there's some of my employees I don't see regularly, and I love stopping in with them, just talking about how things are going, just knowing their families and what's concerning to them and stuff like that. So and several other people have touched on this, just interacting with the employees of the county and getting to know what struggles they're facing with as far as the county is concerned, because they're interacting with that aspect day to day, and just helping to plan ways to assist in those areas. So I enjoy that immensely.
My other question is, you've lived on this small acreage north of Canton, so you have been one of the many people that like to have the enjoyment of country life, but you're living in an ag sector. How would you maintain or control that particular area so that the infringement of these, little houses moving in the country wouldn't impact negatively on the ag ability for a farmer to raise livestock if he wants to, or if he's a grain farmer and all of that kind of stuff? How do you maintain that?
Okay, yeah, so here, as quick as I can. Sorry.
Excuse me.
We're
Go
just,
ahead.
so I am a firm believer in utmost property rights of the people that own the property that is there. So I believe that when it comes to the acres that I own, that I have under God the ability to work with that acreage in many different manners. Obviously, there's zoning issues, and you got to be wary of what your neighbors are encroach upon. Like, I've got numerous animals, livestock at my acreage that was not there beforehand from the people that I bought it from. And we've got next door neighbors, and I'm constantly thinking about, are they hearing my animals? Are they, can they smell them? And I want to maintain a great relationship with my neighbors. So I do the best that I can to keep them to one side of my acreage where there's no neighbors there. So I want to see growth. I want to see development. I believe that if you own a building eligibility and you want to sell it, you should have that right. I think, and if somebody wants to buy that land and hold those building eligibilities and not have it developed, I think they should have that right as well. So, did that answer it?
Yes,
Jim?
thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope. Thanks. Okay, then moving forward, the next person that we have is Chad Skiles.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chad Skiles. I reside here in Canton. I have been a resident of Lincoln County for 50 years, since my family moved to Canton as a young child. And I grew up, went to school, and have worked my entire life here in Canton and in Lincoln County. My primary background is in public service. I have been an EMT in Canton, Lenox, Lincoln County, state of South Dakota for 42 years. So public safety and healthcare is in my blood. But I also have a background in other areas of public safety. Back in the 1990s, when Lincoln County was 10 times smaller population than it is today. I was a 911 dispatcher, worked my way up, became the 911 director, and was also the emergency management director. So I have a lot of ties to Lincoln County. Lincoln County is my home. Along with myself, my family are all still reside and live in Lincoln County. My mom worked for 35 years in a local healthcare institution. My dad was a local businessman, a farmer, worked in ag-related businesses. My brothers still own and operate an ag business in Canton and still farm the family farm. And when I say the word farm, the word family always goes with it because that's where my roots are. I may have been a town boy, but much of my childhood memories were staying and spending the summers on my grandpa's farm. I'll date myself a little bit because I learned to drive an 8N Ford, a 70 John Deere, and a Super M Farmall. I helped feed the pigs. I helped my grandpa and my uncle milk a couple dozen dairy cows. So the family farm is near and dear to me. The last decade, I have become extremely civically engaged. I've literally attended hundreds of Lincoln County Commission meetings over the last decade. I have gotten up and spoke in front of this commission numerous times over the years on numerous different topics, asking questions and offering suggestions. The only first for me tonight is, I guarantee you, this is the first time any of you have seen me in a suit and tie. My civic engagement background, I guess, would borderline on being a nerd. I watch and attend every city commission, city council, county commission meeting in the county, either in person or I watch it on stream if it's available. I have a 3-ring binder at home that I keep track of all of the agendas and the minutes of all the cities in Lincoln County, making sure that I have reviewed and looked at them. I have also, about 10 years ago, teamed up with a fellow citizen and got a controversial jail building project on the ballot, which the voters ultimately defeated. I have served on the Lincoln County Courthouse Advisory Committee and the old courthouse advisory committee, and I am currently a member of the SAFE group, which is dealing with, it's a safety action for improving road safety in Lincoln County. I believe in openness and transparency. That's my game. If you've heard me say it once, I've said it numerous times. And I feel that because of my background, I'm uniquely qualified to step into the position of Lincoln County Commissioner, and I look forward to answering any and all of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chad, you have been very civically engaged, and I can attest to that. And do you still have the blog where you track who makes the motions and the seconds and all of that?
I do still have my blog, although I have taken a couple of month time off just to, for my own sanity, but I do still have my blog, yes.
And that's okay. Some time off is good. You know the drill with me. I want to get your take on, what you think the rules ought to be in the comp plan for, big projects, which include data centers and the dairy and all that. And then I also want to, for all the years that you've been coming here, I don't really know if I ever got your real unvarnished take on how you think the state's process went with regard to putting us through that prison boondoggle. So,
Sure.
If you could talk to that, thank you.
Absolutely. I'll start with the prison because I never was real overly vocal and verbal with that project, mainly because of my background and the line of work that I'm in public safety. I felt it may put myself in some precarious situations, so I just kind of stayed quiet with it. But I remember the day that Governor Noem announced the prison coming to Lincoln County, because I immediately had 2 red flag questions. The first was, we just do not have the infrastructure to handle that kind of humongous project. There was just no way that it was going to work in its proposed location. And number 2, the part that why I stayed more quiet on it, was because it would have overwhelmed the current public safety abilities, specifically law enforcement, fire service, and of course, emergency medical services. So I was vehemently opposed to the location in anywhere in Lincoln County. And so I was very pleased with the announcement that it was going to be taken out of Lincoln County. Regarding data centers, frankly, data centers scare me. They scare me because I probably don't know as much about them as I should. But one thing that I learned in following and watching the Sioux Falls most recent debacle with their data center was an overriding coming together of different people, different backgrounds, different political backgrounds, who came together to oppose that proposed data center. And the limited conversations that the county commission has had up to this point here, the word moratorium has come up more than once. And I would have to say that I definitely support a moratorium at this stage. And the reason is because there is just so much that we need to learn before a good, educated decision can be made regarding data centers in Lincoln County. And last is the big farms. You know, I've already alluded to that when I think of farming, I think of family farms, I think of small farms. How to balance the larger capos with the small family farms is the key to making this work. But I also feel very strongly that in the comprehensive plan, in planning and zoning, that there needs to be some hard, fast rules on limiting sizes, because that is what I see happening when I watch planning and zoning meetings regarding a CAPO or something, is that it always seems to be the overriding theme of opposition, which has to do with the numbers of the operation. The last thing we want to do is drain and make the family farm a thing of the past in Lincoln County, because Lincoln County is an ag county, no matter what is happening in the north end.
Thank you. Chad, as Commissioner Aaron's has said, you've been about the most faithful servant sitting in that corner back there. We could put your name on that, reserved for you. Lincoln County, growing, all the time growing, road grids, and things like that. Public safety, demands on our sheriff's department, on highways, on our road grid. So if you're coming in as a commissioner, do you have one that you would pick, that you would fixate on, that you would work on? Or have you thought about that, on what area you might want to concentrate?
I have actually, and there's two of them that definitely stick out for me. One is, obviously, I'm going to say public safety. Since public safety has been my lifelong background, and the issues that are happening in all aspects of public safety, law enforcement, fire service, and EMS, the balance that we have between urban and rural is making all of those an extreme challenge. And I feel as a Lincoln County Commission that we can really, with good, sound decisions, follow a good practice that's going to keep us in a well balance. The second is, again, that balance that has to do with a growing urban area infringing on what I think of Lincoln County, which is the ag, the rural setting, because District 2, the district that I could potentially represent, is primarily ag and rural, and that's what we need to protect. We need to protect our family farms. We need to make good, sound decisions to protect all aspects of it.
Doug?
I got one question. Why did you call Amy Harms an extremist?
I don't know what it's being referenced to, but it's obviously probably some political view.
Okay.
Chad, back to the role and responsibilities of a commissioner. What would you say is the largest role of a commissioner when you looked at and watched this year?
I think the biggest thing is being open and transparent with the citizens and interacting with the citizens. I think it's really important that we utilize the opinions, the facts, the research, the homework that the citizens do when they come to the commission, and to keep an open ear and an open mind to involving the citizens during a discussion or a debate when there's a big decision that's on the plate.
just to try to phrase this question, I'm not sure I'm gonna do a very good job of it, but you had said the growing urban infringing on the rural. Now, it's a fact that most of Lincoln County tax dollars come from the northern part of the county, and they pay for those roads and all that stuff down in the rural area. So how would you balance those two things?
I definitely think and see that as the key to making this work. That is a tough thing because yes, we have to rely on the tax base, but on the same hand, we also have to protect that small family farm, the hobby farm, the ag producers, who also provide very important aspects in paying property taxes with all of their ag land.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
All right. And then we have Sarah Stever. It's our last one.
Good evening, Commissioners, and yay, last one. Sarah Stever, my husband and I live in Perry Township. Actually, Herman Otten's my neighbor. Neighbors, country neighbors, share a gravel road. So I actually grew up on a farm, like many of the people who've interviewed here tonight, and I am married into a family who lives on the farm that's been there since 1892. So my son, who is now also on the farm, he and his wife, along with us, we have two houses on the quarter section that we live on, will be the sixth John Stever to live on that farm. So it's pretty exciting for us, and I get to be a grandma in November. So that's the reason why I'm actually here, is because our family's not going anywhere. We're here for the long haul, and we continually invest in our property. And so a little bit about me. Actually graduated from USD and was an artist. And I started at an agency in Sioux Falls, and I ended up being on their leadership team as a part owner for the last probably 30 of the 34 years that I worked there. I just recently retired. So that was a great experience, and I was the president of the agency for 7 years, so I'm very familiar with what it takes to hire people and not hire just people, but the families that come with them, and how important that is to have relationships with them and see them beyond just the roles that they have at the agency or in any business. My husband and I also run a bed and breakfast for the last 29 years, so we have an agritourism here, and we run some cattle and some sheep, some chickens, and some bees on our farm. So a lot of different experiences. I'm on a couple different boards right now. One's an ESOP company in Sioux Falls, and also the South Dakota Ag and Rural Leadership. I was part of the University of South Dakota's Agribusiness Leadership Curriculum Development Program. So I've been involved in other aspects of civic duty that all seem to have a tentacle into agriculture. So that's been a pretty core part of my career and kind of my volunteerism. But also important, to understand what it's like to have an urban business. An ad agency would definitely fall into the business category. So familiar with the spreadsheets and the budgets and the reality of the cycles of what it's like to sometimes have 25 people you're working for and sometimes have 35, and then those realities that come with being a business owner. So I think I'm ready for questions.
All right.
Sarah, good evening. Thank you for being here, last but not least. So appreciate the opportunity to discuss with you tonight. As you brought up, and I'll put it in my words, God's not making more land. And the issues that folks in southern Lincoln County are grappling with is how the government regulates and treats what's going to go on the land. and what's not going to go on the land, probably more importantly. So I would like to hear your thoughts on what you think the rules ought to be with regard to, the comp plan and dairies, and, because it's a big issue and contentious, and I know you've been at some of those meetings. And data centers, and I know you've been involved in that, and then I'd just like to get your thoughts on what you thought about the state's process for when they thought they were going to take some land as well for the prison. Thank you.
Bet. I think livestock is essential to keeping agriculture alive in rural Lincoln County. If you want to, because there is no more land, and you want to bring your family back into the operation, oftentimes that's through livestock development. I think where it gets dicey is when things just get too big, too many head, too many animal units, as we call it, and we overwhelm environmentally the system. So that's where it's a challenge. And I think you can actually have two similarly sized CAFOs and have one with really good practices and one with not really good practices. And so you end up with a good neighbor and a bad neighbor. And the bad neighbor is where we run into issues. So I'll use the dairy that we have that's large as an example, and I'm very familiar with the challenges of the dairy organization because I've worked with those clients on the national level. And larger dairies have their own challenges environmentally, but they also have challenges for the dairy operator in terms of profitability. And so that's really the challenge, is what's the size of the operation that's actually profitable and can run, and still not overwhelm the area around it with the practices that they have just by virtue of the fact that they've got so many animal units on the. So I think the work that we're doing through planning and zoning, which I have loved the open communication and the idea that we can actually go back and forth and discuss this with them, feels not like just we're talking to a wall, but they're actually responding back, and we have multiple times to go through it, think things through, and determine like what are those good neighbor policies going to be? What are those setbacks going to be that can actually preserve the reality of what's happening in our county? And part of that is, I think I looked in the comprehensive plan, 1990 was the last number we had for the percentage of people who work in agriculture in our county. It was 11%. I can guarantee you now that's probably closer to 3%. So that's just the reality of what happens when we get so much consolidation in agriculture, and right now we have a ton of consolidation. And the byproduct of that is that when we lose those small farms, or those farms, $100,000 gross farm income or lower, those are the people that spend 95% of their money here. Those larger operations, when dairies come in from out of state, the reality of that is, and happens with swine farms, they spend only about 20% of their income here. So that affects our tax base to a degree as well, and I think that's also a reality. So if we're able to bring these, kids back to the farm, which is every parent's dream, making it so that they can do that through livestock, I think will help us thrive, because if we have more farmers, we actually have stronger communities, period. If you have fewer farmers, you lose your towns. It's just math. You don't have a school, you can't field any commerce in downtown. It's really hard on these little towns. So I think that's kind of how I see the dairy issue. We're working through it with planning and zoning. I think we'll come up with a great solution. Data centers is a different thing. I think it's hard to appreciate the scale of something like a 500 megawatt data center, which is what's proposed up northeast of Sioux Falls. Those buildings are massive, and they take obviously a massive amount of energy. That's actually more energy than every household in South Dakota. So it's really quite stunning how big it is. They also take other resources. They really don't give back a lot of employment, which is what was already implied. People have talked about that as well. The water usage issue actually is kind of a fallacy, because even a closed loop system, most of the water used for a data center is actually from the type of energy they need, which is dispatchable energy. So that's going to be coal, nuclear, which we have none to give them, and natural gas. So even the closed loop system is really very resource intensive, but I think really it boils down to two things. One is, who are these companies that are coming in? It's not actually Google coming in. In the case of Sioux Falls, it's Gemini family, and they're if you look into them, they're kind of an interesting organization from Los Angeles. So who are these people? Are they just shopping? See what kind of a deal they can get, and what's the trade-off resource-wise. But then also, because things are changing so rapidly, chips are getting better, racks more dense, all these aspects of this, I think indicate that in 2 to 5 years, you may have an empty building because of perhaps Elon Musk shooting up into orbit or submerging them. We've talked about some of those things, but just the idea that I have more power in my phone right now than the room-size IBM computers did that first came out. Those things are all scaling down. So I think jumping too soon may mean we have a stranded asset, and that's not something anybody wants. I also talked to one of the generation and transmission co-ops about this just a couple days ago, because I was on a panel talking about it. And they're getting offers coming in that they're expected to follow up on that just completely swamp the amount of energy that's even available in our area, period. So some of it is just kind of, not even realistic, so. The prison, I call it the prison debacle. It was so heavy-handed, and I didn't have a chance to pay as much attention to it just because the pipeline issue was also on fire at the same time. But I think that was handled so poorly. There was no reason for us to have been kept in the dark that way. Yeah, nobody likes a backroom deal, and that's absolutely what that smacked of. And God bless the Note people for getting that moved down the road. I still think there were problems with the location they've got up in Sioux Falls, but I am grateful that it's not in Lincoln County.
Thank you. Sarah, we've chased talked about a lot of issues, but if you're a commissioner, what would be some of the priorities that you would focus on?
Yeah, I think the ag rural, the rural and urban divide thing is probably one of the biggest challenges that we're going to have, only because, as someone mentioned earlier, most of the tax revenue is actually coming from the urban area, and yet we want to preserve the nature and the beauty of our county. And I think we have to do that by just having really thoughtful ordinances in place. And I think the citizen process that I mentioned earlier with planning and zoning is a really good way to do that. But I think we're going to continue to bump heads on that. The housing eligibility thing, I know I'm controversial in saying this, but I also think it should just be an asset. If you have a whole section and you've got 16 of them, you could sell 4 of them and build a small feedlot. I think that's a great way actually to fund some of these livestock entities coming into the lower half of the state. And I don't think it's realistic to think you're going to build 16 houses on a section anyway, probably, if you're trying to retain your agricultural beauty. So I'd like to see that actually be a little bit more open. But I think that, the urban and rural part is going to be a challenge, especially with ag consolidating the way it is.
Following up on that, do you have any insights as to how you could, as a commissioner, bring the two entities so they would learn to appreciate the challenges that each face? And from the standpoint of the ag area, difficult it is, tough enough to make ends meet on a farm today anyway. But I mean, if you're going to have a young man or your daughter come back and understand the challenges that family faces versus another family living up in Canton or living in T or living in Lenox, and how they would like to have somebody move back, but they want lower taxes and they want better highways and that costs money. So any thoughts on how you could, because you're in public relations, so how would you do that? You guys got a lot of answers.
Huge challenge. I mean, you can have all the town halls in the world that you want to have, but just to get people to shut Netflix off for a while and come and participate civically, we all know there's a big decline in member organizations, and civics is one that's a challenge as well. I don't know if I've got a perfect answer to that, because what seems to happen is you get some sort of a traumatic thing like a prison comes in, that then all of a sudden everyone's interested, but only because they're upset. So it will just be something I think we'll be grappling with, but I think communication is about as good as it's gonna get.
Thank you. All right. We are. So I
Go ahead.
kind of want some.
I'm good. You answered everything I wanted to know.
I kind of want some inputs from commissioners. So we're not taking action tonight. We could take public comment tonight from the folks that are here, but I'm assuming that there are going to be people watching that are going to want to give some public input at our next meeting when we're actually, before we start the voting. So commissioners, do you want to do the public comment tonight and then take more public comment at the next meeting? Or do you want to save it all for the next meeting?
I think I could hear a few public comments right now. That wouldn't
Okay.
hurt them.
All right, Commissioner?
I'm open.
Everybody's good with that?
Yes.
Okay. Then we will take public comment on the interviews that were connected tonight. When you come up to the microphone, please state your name and where you're from.
Chair, Commissioners, Sam Eastland, Canton. I just want to get up here and show my support for Madeline. I got the opportunity to, I've known her for a long time, been a friend, neighbor, and I got the opportunity to work with her on the prison issue, and we worked very closely. And I will tell you that she has a lot of integrity and a lot of character. And I think you all know Burdell Copeland, and her being his granddaughter, I think that's where a lot of that integrity came from. And we all saw what a staple he was for the community, and I think she's going to bring that to this commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kelly Brack from T. I am speaking on behalf of Dwayne Carlson. I met Dwayne a few years ago when I was working on a special project for a legislator in District 16. Dwayne was very generous with his time when I had several questions regarding township ordinances and township budgets. He answered all my questions and was very patient with me. Dwayne's technical knowledge of township roads and infrastructure will be a tremendous asset to the citizens of Lincoln County. His knowledge, along with his willingness to help people, makes him an exceptional candidate for this position. Also wanted to mention too that I think it's rare to find someone who possesses both deep technical expertise and a genuine desire to serve the public. So I enthusiastically support Dwayne Carlson for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity, Commissioners. Tom Eastland from Canton. I'll double down on what my son Sam had to say about Madeline. What appeals to me the most also is her ag and small town background. Agriculture is still the economic backbone of South Dakota and of Lincoln County. And we don't always remember that. Sadly, a lot of people don't even know that. And you can talk about our wonderful tax base up north, but where does all the money get spent? The tax money. Right up there. They're the ones that demand all the services. And the other thing is, we don't have real good ag representation on this commission now, and we need that again. I think several of you would agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bethany Eric, Centerville, South Dakota. I'm here to support Dwayne Carlson because he was our only person that has actually run for the office and was only 34 votes behind Betty. So our community knows him, loves him, respects him. I'm in his township and I feel fortunate to have him as this road supervisor for my township. I also like Linda and Sarah too. I've seen them, I've been side by side with them talking with issues that matter to all the citizens of our area. So those are my three candidates that I dearly, dearly support. So hope you'll take that into consideration. Thanks.
Good evening, Commissioners. Michelle Jensen, Canton. Boy, I don't envy your decision. You have had many good candidates that spoke very well, and the things they said sound like it's great for Lincoln County. But I would be remiss if I did not get up here tonight and voice support for Maddie Vogelai as well. She is the person that I have worked with the closest, and so I can vouch for her, her work ethic, her honesty, her integrity, her ability to organize and put things together and listen to people. So I do just need to let you know that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Pete Fallberg, Pleasant Township down near Beersford. I too hope you have a good time making a decision. You've got a good group of candidates, and I appreciate all your questions and interest, and you have shown what you see as the concerns of Lincoln County going forward. And as you think about those and what people have said, your decision-making needs to reflect who is capable of moving in that direction as Lincoln County moves too. 80,000 people is a lot of people to represent, and who represents all of those people in their various places. District 2 is, I believe, 14 townships, and how do you get a person that can cover that much territory? On behalf of Pleasant Township, I'm going to cast out my support for Dwayne Carlson. I've worked with him some on township matters and appreciate his interest and capability and concern. And also, as was said before, he did actually run for county commission and has filled out a petition to be part of the office and stood for election. So I think that's a significant factor as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a time limit or no?
Everybody's doing pretty good.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Wow. This has been fun, right? Interesting to see all of the people that came out tonight, and I've really enjoyed it myself. As you consider filling the District 2 vacancy, I actually want to think of something that we haven't really talked about a lot tonight, and that is Commissioner Betty Otten. Betty did not simply decide to run for office. She spent years preparing herself for public service, beginning in 2020, which actually, coincidentally, is when she actually got me involved in politics as well. She started regularly attending county commission meetings because she wanted to understand how county government worked and how decisions affected taxpayers. She served on the Lincoln County Courthouse Improvement Advisory Committee. She served as the chair of the Lincoln County Republicans. And I think one thing that she did is she really demonstrated that she wanted to serve her community. Betty was also very clear about what she believed. She ran as a Republican and a conservative, and she never tried to hide her values. We all know that Betty and I didn't always see eye to eye on everything, but there are some things that I think we did really see eye to eye on. And during the 2024 election, she publicly supported No on H. That protected the South Dakota primaries for Republicans. She also ran, or was very firm on her stance for No on G. That campaign protected the lives of unborn children. Those were positions that she just adopted after the election. She made sure that her constituents knew where she stood, and she never hid that from anyone. If you know Betty, there are 3 things that are unmistakable about her. She loves President Trump, she loves the Republican Party, and she has a deep passion for protecting unborn children. Also, she loves to post videos of animals with clothes on. Don't know why, but it's also something you should be known. Whether you agree with her or not, she is authentic, she's consistent, and voters know exactly who they were electing. Her campaign centered on several key priorities. Interestingly, a lot of the same key priorities that I had. She believed in being responsible steward of taxpayer dollars, making thoughtful decisions about county spending, and ensuring accountability to taxpayers. She advocated for transparent government, believing residents should have better access to information and a clearer understanding of county decisions. Betty actually was instrumental in having night meetings. It was her idea that she brought to the board to have one night meeting a month for 6 months and to see how that went. And here we are. So we can all thank Betty for that. These weren't simply campaign promises for Betty. These were Betty. This is what she stood for, and everyone knew it. So as you consider filling the vacancy tonight, I simply ask that you remember the choice that the voters made. They elected someone who is prepared, engaged, fiscally responsible, committed to transparency, and clear about her conservative values and priorities that she would bring to office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chad Baldwin, 46743 287th Street, Centerville, South Dakota. I too envy you guys in the position that you guys are in right now, having to make this decision. But I certainly hope you understand the position the citizens of this district are in. We are constantly fighting to maintain the way of life that we have. I'm not very good at this, but we're just want to be represented in the right way with somebody from our area that's been going through the things we've dealt with. And I've talked to several township people, and pretty much everybody agreed that the voice of Dwayne Carlson is what we need. So I support Dwayne Carlson. Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
Dana Knudsen, 46526 291st Street, serve on Delaware Township. Yeah, you got a whole boat of qualified applicants here, so I don't envy your decisions, but as a township, and I think you need to realize that since a seat was filled by a Republican, I think that should hold some weight to fill this position as a Republican seat. And we also would like to have someone from our area that knows the issues that we've been dealing with, and that would be Dwayne Carlson, and I support him through Delaware Township. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioner. Scott Montgomery, Fairview. I just want to thank you for this process. It's been wide open in the public, and I too want to echo that this was a Republican-filled seat, and it ought to remain a Republican-filled seat. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Then we will move on, and then we will do our balloting and discussion at the next meeting on July 7th. What time are we starting at? 6:30 again?
That's a decision for the board to make.
Right. Everybody got good with 6:30?
6:30.
6:30.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, and then next thing we have is our commission work session regarding the proposed budget. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and we do have a lot of thinking to do because it really is a great field of candidate choices that we have. So thanks,
Can-
everybody.
Can we make a comment?
Yeah, if you want to.
I just want to tell you that this has been a very interesting evening. And I want to thank all of you because we've got committed people. And it's heartwarming to sit here and to listen to all of you express your desire and your commitment for better government and for our county. So thank you, and I congratulate you, but thank you for putting that up there. And it's just, I've sat here a long time, and I've often wondered, you know, are we really, what's the county going? But when I look out and listen, this county has a great future and is going to do well, and this is going to be one tough decision to make. So, anyway.
I want to thank each and every one of the applicants who were here tonight. Thank you for taking some tough questions. Thank you for wrestling and grappling with some of the issues that this commission has had to grapple with. You know what the issues are in your district. You all live them, and you have lived them for the last few years. Thank you for taking my questions as well as from the other commissioners. I appreciate it. I will say this. This has been a fascinating experience. Having all of these qualified persons come forward and to want to be a part of the process says great things about Lincoln County. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank everybody for coming too, also. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have our commission work session regarding the proposed budget. Now, I know we had some glitches with the numbers that were in the last presentation that we had with the new software. We just got our binders tonight. Do we want to not do the budget work session tonight, or do we want to keep plugging along?
Madam Chair, could I make this suggestion?
Sure.
I expressed this to Paul today, so I want to say in public what I said to Paul via email. I said I think it would be helpful if we dove into the budget after the next commissioner is seated, which it sounds by all intents and purposes will be next Tuesday night. And it's already 9:30 at night, which is okay. I'll stay here until you want to go home. But we just heard some pretty meaty testimony there. And one of the things I am concerned about is I've just seen this binder for the first time today. And that's not a criticism, of course. I mean, that's just a function of, the folks working it out, sending it out. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. But I think any budget discussion should start after the new commissioner is seated. And, I mean, we could easily schedule this up for next Tuesday night to start and thereafter.
Well, I think we should, and all those folks would be here struggling with us and have an opportunity to make comment if they so choose. So I'm just, timing-wise, we need to get moving on it, is my concern.
Madam Chair, I agree with Commissioner.
Well, I want to,
The next deadline that you guys are going to want to have on your radar is going to be July 15th, when you can decide if you're going to do an opt-out or not.
so I think we have to have that budget meeting, and we'd have to be prepared to move on an opt-out unless we're going to talk about a special meeting.
Well, we got big decisions to make, and I would rather do that in a timely fashion and be able to review what's in here, because there's a lot of money issues, we got a lot of highway issues, there's several things I want to bring forward that are going to make everybody take a long, hard look at what our priorities are. So I'd rather wait until next week.
So if we're going to wait, I guess my only question is, Commissioners, on the talk of doing the opt-out, since our deadline is the 15th. So the next meeting would be our last meeting before that deadline. So how do we want to handle that?
Is there, if,
Would we have, yeah, we would have a meeting on the 14th. Okay. All right.
but Madam Chair, if we're going to have some real challenges here, is it not without possibility of having a special meeting to talk about money issues? Because it's out there. Anyway, if we had to have one, I'd be in favor of having a special meeting, concentrating on whether there's an opt-out or whether there's a levy changing or something for roads and bridges, that kind of stuff. But if we can fit that into the 7th and 14th, that's fine too.
Okay. So if we're all good with that, we'll just move this over to the 7th. Anybody have any problem with doing that? Commissioner Putnam?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, then we
Is there just,
Go ahead.
is there anything else you guys would like to see on the 7th that we can prepare for you?
Well, that's kind of what I was, if we need to put some kind of an opt-out, if there's any commissioners that have been looking at that, we would want to have it listed at least.
Sherry, one question I have, separate and apart from the opt-out discussion that I'm hearing. The new format that you guys gave to us at the last, or the first initial budget meeting, were some of the glitches in that fixed as well? And
They are, what we're gonna do is we're gonna stay away from the ClearGov until we get the, numbers finalized so that we can dump the information from Encode to it. The information that was attached to the agenda last Thursday is the previous way that we used to do it, so that you could review it in a format that you're used to. Once we get done with this, then I'm gonna go back to the ClearGov and get it all straightened out in there and present it in that manner.
thank you.
But yes, we did get a lot of the glitches worked out.
All right, so does anybody want anything specific on the agenda about any opt-out for roads and bridges? All right, then don't put it on there, I guess.
I'm gonna, wait.
So
Hang on.
there's a couple things you guys gotta think about, because we're gonna have the pay study that Carrie's gonna be presenting, hopefully around that same time. Then you guys have to consider the opt-out, so you need to give staff direction on what you want to have.
Yeah, I think the regular business rules still apply. If any commissioner wants to put an issue on the agenda here this coming Friday, well, they certainly can.
Madam, Sherry, we talked not about an opt-out for roads and bridges, but I want to bring in a road and bridge levy. And a levy is different than an opt-out because a levy money goes directly to roads and bridges versus an opt-out goes to general fund. So consequently, I want to bring that forward. And I'd like to know on how, I've talked with Terry about this, and what kind of assessment we would have to meet the needs, current needs of keeping our road grid maintained, because it's under attack each and every day. So I want that on the agenda for sure.
All right, anything else from the commissioners? All right, if not, then we have a regular opportunity for public comment for items not on our agenda, if anybody would like to come up.
Good evening, Darren. Scott Montgomery, Fairview. A number of us in this room were out to the South Dakota GOP convention, and I ask you people to pay attention to the resolutions and the changes in the platform. One of the biggest things was when the resolutions were passed to remove all electronics from elections. I ask you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Dan Kipley, and I'm representing the South Dakota Sioux Falls Chamber appeals as far as campaign appeal. And this time, it's for the Abbott House. And the Abbott House organization is in the process of building 2 new foster homes in the Minnehaha-Lincoln area. And with that, they would be their homes now in Sioux Falls as well as Mitchell and Rapid City. And these 2 additional homes are going to be able to house several young people that are in foster care. We do not have enough foster parents stepping forward at this point in time in the state of South Dakota. So the Abbott House is stepping in and filling that void. When these kids are not able to be housed in the Abbott houses or other families' housing, those kids get sent out of state. And when we have foster kids get sent out of state, that costs all taxpayers in South Dakota a lot of money. And when we can keep those kids in state, again, we save money. It still costs the state a lot of money, but again, we save a lot. So the Chamber of Appeals right now is in a campaign to raise $1.8 million. And we currently have raised $1.2 million from 74 generous donors. And I'm here tonight to ask the Lincoln County Commission to consider a donation to the Abbott House over a 3 or 5 year pledge. And again, the money's tight this year, so you can put off your pledge until 27 and 28 and 29, or 28, 29, and 30. But anybody and if you don't do it as a commission, I would ask each individual commissioner to step forward. I, as a citizen, have stepped forward and made a donation to the Abbott House because I think it's very important to support our kids. And it's a recidivism issue. If we can help these kids get through the foster care program, as well as graduate from high school and move on, there's a chance, less of them having a chance of being in prison. And that's going to save, again, taxpayer dollars. So I'd like to have you consider that. Your budget hearings are starting, and I would think that that would be something that you can consider. Every dollar, how small, would help. So if you 5 commissioners would just pony up $5, it's all going to help. And that way Lincoln County could be counted as a contributor to the Abbott House. I thank you and look forward to having you consider that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other public comment tonight? All right, if not, any commission office report?
Hello, Paul Anderson, your Commission Administrative Office Assistant. Just wanted to touch on the ambulance work session from a couple weeks ago. There was actually quite a bit of ambulance stuff that happened 2 weeks ago now. There was the meeting out in Lenox that was attended by Commissioner Schmidt and some other interested parties, and sent you all a brief breakdown of it. That is something that they're looking at, reaching out to all of you, so there should be more moving on that in a while. And then the next day, the state legislature had their emergency medical services summer study, which included a lot of discussion about the federal funds that are coming into the state of South Dakota, specifically for rural emergency medical services. So as that continues, that is something I will be taking a hard look at every day. And if you have any questions about ambulance services as that comes up, or would like to get more involved with that yourself, please just let me know, and we can work with either the city of Lenox, who I know should be reaching out, and the state legislature to kind of share our opinions as a county that is actively engaging in this right now. And that's what I have for now. Look forward to comments from you throughout the week, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you. Commission reports this evening?
Madam Chair, we will be having a report coming down from Interlakes Community Action Program to talk about the amount of services that are rendered for Lincoln County. And they can range from rental assistance, from housing, from transportation, to any number of things that are dealing with kids, dealing with families, weatherization, all kinds of opportunities on that one. The other one I wanted to mention was the new farm bill has some very interesting things beyond just aid to farmers, but for community development. And I've talked with their representative, and they're going to be coming down to a commission meeting here. And they're going to talk to, in case of community looking, or townships. I mean, there's a lot of money that has been allocated in this one in kind of a new direction. So to get firsthand information, we're going to bring that person who is in charge of that department for the farm bill coming down, and that's going to be very interesting. So watch your agenda on that one, because I think that can affect a lot of local communities, small, large, anywhere.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other reports this evening? Drew, do we need executive session for anything? All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. If you spoke tonight for public, whether, for whatever it was, if you'd make sure that your names are logged on our sign-in sheet there, that'd be great.